Hello, and welcome to Jason Cabness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cabness. So in the past, y'all have heard my stories how I started in tech startups, how a guy named Mark Monroe reached out to me. I was looking for a job in the Army. Well, today we have the one and only Mark Monroe on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Mark, thanks for being here today.
Oh man, it's been what is this? It's been years in the
It's
making.
been a while, yeah, yeah. Um, so softball question for you. What do you do to take care of yourself, like mentally, physically, whatever taking care of yourself is?
Lots of video games, lots of walks. I mean, of course, spending time with my wife, who's like my champion. Of course, just sleep, because I think that a lot of founders miss out on sleep.
Because everyone's not Elon Musk, right?
Absolutely not. Like, how this man like literally goes off of maybe like 30 hours a week on sleep on a 168-hour day. I couldn't do it.
I know, isn't there some study out there that says like if you go like that, you're going to catch like dementia or Alzheimer's later on in life?
It's very is I can see that's very possible. Like I think that like sometimes I find myself like doing 110 hours on a 7-day week, and I know that after pulling a 110-hour week, I'm nah,
So
sleep.
that's a good point. Like as a founder or entrepreneur, anyone working, like how do you know? So sometimes you got to push through, right?
Yep.
Like how do you know when to push through? When like okay, I need to give myself a break.
It's like anything else. You know when it's like you're like, you're overextending yourself. Like you feel it. Like, every founder or anybody else out there knows that like, all right, I'm tired. Like, and I'm gassed. And I always like one of the things that my wife says is like when you say that you're tired, I listen. Like I don't let that slide. And so it's just more so in the sense of just being in tune to like yourself and not trying to overextend yourself. Because when you do that, I mean, yeah, you make mistakes. You make tons of mistakes. And then on top of that, it's like not only did you make the mistake, but then you have to go back, and then on top of that, your health. Like your body is not able to fight off things that normally that you typically fight. So your immune system is compromised. So the power of sleep is incredible.
And next question, what do you do for fun?
Oh man, soccer,
You still
basketball,
playing soccer?
still playing. Though that like I've been kind of like resting my Achilles a little bit. Trying not to get an Achilles injury, but it's just been like a strain. Definitely video games. I'm on Division 2 all day, every day. Well, not all day, but like, that's my favorite go-to. And then of course I still watch wrestling when I can catch it.
So what's your take on? I think there's been like a lot of layoffs in the gaming industry. What's your take on that?
Oh,
Just
I
the
was just
cycle of that, or
I was just talking to, I think it was Tom Hammer on LinkedIn. So shout outs to Tom Hammer if you're watching this from A16Z. He was talking about this where we were talking about like layoffs from EA and I think it was Take Two Interactive. Um, I think that it's a rolling effect. I think it's a rolling effect. I mean, you had in the pandemic where a lot of these companies had to massively hire due to the fact that we were seeing a totally different new normal. Not everybody was at the office. You needed redundancies. You needed all those things. But now, like, pandemic is over. The landscape has changed. Operational expenses don't need to be that high. So essentially, you got to cut back on capex spending. You got to get wages under control. Where you once saw during the pandemic, people who would normally get paid 175 are getting paid 250 a year. And so those are the things that we saw, given that inflation was high, cost of capital was high. So of course, companies need to really back in. And I think that the gaming industry is facing that also. We saw a lot of game studios out there that really underperformed. Now that people are back outside, so of course it's like you got to cut back.
as far as like workers being unrealistic as far as the salary expectations, like you said, it used to be 250, and now I mean, you would think if you get paid 250, you see everyone getting laid off, you got laid off, and you want the same 250, like okay, read the market, right?
Read the
Or am I
room.
wrong or something?
No, for real. Read the market. The market, I always tell people the market says what you are. So again, it's like you may believe that you should be making 250, but then when you see everybody else in your counterparts like literally coming down to like let's say 195 to 215, it's time to read the room as like, okay, hey, you may get that job, but then at the same token, when it comes time for them having to cut back on spending or cut back on operational expenses, you're going that overhead cost, you're going to be probably the first
Yeah,
person.
and obviously, like we're not saying don't get your value, get your value.
Yeah,
However,
get your
kind of
value.
like your value might not be as high as you think it is.
Yes. And it's also in the sense of like, weathered expectations and not being just overzealous in your expectations. You're still great, but then understand like, climate, sentiment, and everything else. Those things also play a role. What is it that the company is willing to spend? What is it that they can afford at this point in time?
Yeah. Like people like different over her. Like I know I think Elon Musk had a lot of criticism. You can't cut all these jobs, Twitter's gonna fail. And like is Twitter still running, right? I mean it's like I mean you might disagree with the politics and stuff they do, but man,
Yeah,
it's still running. You know, like
it's very much so still running. I think that, with Twitter, it's kind of like, it kind of makes you ask the question, was Twitter really supposed to be a publicly traded company, or
yeah.
did it grow too fast beyond its
Like you
control?
said, I'm sure there's a lot of redundancy in
There
there.
was a lot of redundancies that they had to cut back on. They had made a lot of acquisitions that never really panned out that they kind of scrapped. So that was just wasted
Mhm.
capital. The company wasn't really making it, like if you look at its earnings growth over a period of time, it wasn't showing growth. It was actually showing significant decline. So yeah, I mean, you gotta cut.
And what's the story? I'm not, that you hear like, you know, Elon Musk to cut off these servers. They said it'd take a year. He did like in a weekend with two random dudes.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me right now?
No, I
Like
mean, he's in
Elon Musk,
startup
is
mode.
he that smart? Like, goddamn.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, it's smart, and it also means that he's taking the necessary execution of what needs to happen. Like, that's that's the thing. It's like some folks still have that startup mindset
Mhm.
where it's like, okay, hey, yeah, I manage a publicly traded company, but at the same token, a lot of tech companies are realizing this. They're running like their departments like startups. Like individual silos are running as startups. And look at what happened to companies like Amazon. How were they able to get massive amounts of scale?
It's always day one for them, right?
It's always day one. So it's like they're not like in a sense that they believe that they're too big, that they can't make a move just quickly. And so Elon Musk is just like, okay, hey, like we're going back to startup mode. We're a private company now.
And this one, I don't know people realize about Amazon. I have a good friend that works at AWS. She's a director or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked it up. She's been there like only 7 years, and she's been the longer like 93% of the company, right? I mean, and somehow it works, you know?
It does. It does. I mean, you and I both know somebody there, Jonathan.
Yeah.
He does some pretty phenomenal stuff. And, Jonathan is like one of those that, by the way, shout out to Jonathan if he sees this. But, you know, I remember I used to give him so much shit about him, like literally drinking the Amazon Kool-Aid. And then, but then now you see it and you see the company in which that has become. Like he's been there since what, 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And to see the company that it is 10
Yeah.
years later,
Yeah.
just light years like different, but yet at the same token, Amazon's still that company that says that if they step into a space, you look at the other companies that are in that space, their stock drops like by 3%.
Yeah. I still say it's gonna be Amazon everything pretty soon.
It already is Amazon everything. I think the thing is just that I think Amazon is taking somewhat of a different approach now that Andy Jassy is like pretty much the ghost in the shell or the man behind the machine. Um, but I think that honestly, it's where Jeff Bezos was like more so like in your face, you will know it's coming. Andy Jassy is like kind of like the silent blade that you don't see that's happening, that's getting ready to come forth. And kudos to them. Like it's very rare to actually get like somebody that's in that succession plan that can literally like pick it up and keep it going. Like what we're seeing with like companies like Apple. Steve Jobs gone, but now Tim
Yeah.
Cook, and he's been there for X amount of time. And it's like, don't get me wrong, Apple's still Apple, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And so, but to literally have Amazon there and literally not even miss a beat, that's rare.
So speaking of Apple, what do you think about this partnership between Apple and Open AI?
I think it's good. I think it's good. I mean, though, I would have gone Anthropic, but
So any concerns about Elon Musk concerns about Apple giving everyone's data to Open AI or anything like that? So that's pretty much like a done deal. Privacy is done anyway.
I would say that, like looking at Apple, like if you look at, how Apple has always run, their thing has always been in the mindset of privacy first. I don't see that changing. I don't see that mantra changing. I mean, Elon Musk, I mean, though that, his points are warranted, but I think it might be a little bit misguided and misplaced a little bit. I mean, everything about like, and probably the reason why we see Apple kind of like not always the first to things is because of the fact that they're thinking about privacy. They're thinking about like their customer base. They're not thinking about like, okay, hey, we're going to sacrifice these things for growth. That's not how Apple operates. So given in the sense that them working with OpenAI, giving their user base the choice to be able to use those services and to also integrate, that's the user's choice. They're right. But no, I don't see any issues there.
So I know recently there's a lot of talk about, Google, Microsoft, like Apple being monopolies. Are they really monopolies or just the government's just
Yeah,
going
they're
after
monopolies.
the monopolies?
They're
Okay.
monopolies. It's just that the legislation hasn't picked, the legislation is too afraid to ultimately go after any of these companies. Like, okay, I always ask people this running joke. If Google is sitting right here, right, and you have to interrogate them, are you going to interrogate them?
Man, that's a good question.
Like, are you going to interrogate the person that knows your search history?
I guess depending on your search history.
Like,
My search history, probably not.
I'm just saying, like, yo, how do you interrogate a person?
And the next day it's all leaked across the New York Times and CNN and
Or just the fact that they don't even have to leak it. They can just give you the look like,
yeah.
we know.
We accidentally, our intern accidentally let this out.
And it's crazy because it's like we freely gave these companies our data. Like no, like think about it. Like back then when these companies were like really in their golden years, right? Nobody challenged that. Nobody questioned it because of the fact that we were trying to be the first,
Convenience and
and it was convenient. Like America wanted to be dominant at the dominant tech space that it is. Well, now that you've done that, and America has become the dominant tech space of the world, it's like, okay, now you want to put that genie back in the bottle. And it's like, how does that happen? Now, with AI now coming into the question, now we should be having some serious conversations legislatively. We already saw it play out kind of like with the strikes in, the SAG and Writers Guild. We saw some of those things as it pertains to how AI is supposed to participate in Hollywood activities. We need to have more of those conversations.
so it seems like, with AI tech, all the stuff going on, all that stuff's in the year 2100. The government is still in the year 1821, right?
Facts.
And there's no way the government has any idea how to, legislate this stuff.
It's not the fact that I don't think that they know how to legislate it. I think the thing is that they're just so deeply embedded into like specific interest groups that do not allow them to. So you're gonna have to find individuals that are able to legislate that don't have any type of ties or anything like that to any of these companies, and that literally say, okay, hey, well, forget all this stuff. We're gonna have to do it. And I have this feeling that we're gonna wait till the very, well, I wouldn't say to the very last minute, but I think that we're gonna get to a place where it's not going to be the most opportune time where it's going to be like, oh crap, like shit, we just shit the bed, and now we got to legislate.
So let's move to financial fast. So we got an election coming up.
Okay.
Does it really matter who's in charge of the federal government, state government, or any organization, like at all?
I
Like
think in
Department of
certain,
Commerce, does it matter who's running it as
I
far
think,
as
well, I
finance?
mean, you served our country, so like
I mean,
it
matters a little
probably does, it may a little bit, but um, I think as it pertains to voters, like people, I always say like people vote based upon their interests, and I always believe that it's based upon certain economic. They vote based upon their economic interests versus like, I think that that's really where the ideals are. Um, I do believe that it's going to matter as it pertains to like who you have in specific subsets. Like for example, managing treasury, managing like obviously we see what's happening legislatively in the sense that have we even passed a spending bill yet?
Who knows?
Exactly.
Who
So
knows?
like those things matter because of the fact is that you have a Federal Reserve that's doing XYZ to try to keep things like tempered as it pertains to inflation. But then you have a government that just keeps spending exorbitant dollars. Like, hey, money's not a thing. Like
We still have green for the printing the money out. The printers ain't running out of ink.
we still
Yeah,
have the green ink.
yeah.
So I think that at that point, I think it's just more so in the sense that yeah, it does matter. It definitely does matter at who's at leadership, who's at the wheel. Um, and I think that honestly, like this next election, it's really going to determine that as it pertains to who controls the spending, or will we kind of like reel in spending, or will spending just get to a place out of control? Like IMF has already said, the International Monetary Fund, they were like, look, y'all need to reel in the spending. You're spending way too much, and it's getting ridiculous. So now we got that saying, hey, we need to reel in our spending. Other folks have been saying that we need to reel in our spending. But if you have a treasury that's consistently spending and the Fed is trying to cut things or they're trying to hold things so that way we can get things under control, it's kind of like you got multiple entities with their hands tied behind their back.
Is there an organization, or was the Federal Reserve Bank or Department of Treasury or some unknown organization in the U.S. government that has the most impact on the economy that people really don't know about?
Um, you know, it depends upon who you talk to. Like if you talk to a person that's who's on the economic standpoint, they'll definitely easily tell you it's the Treasury and Federal Reserve. You know, Federal Reserve is ultimately, I would say Federal Reserve because they're supposed to be, you know, completely like, you know, hey, we're not impacted by, you know, either side of the aisle, you know, though that they may have their own individual ideals, whatever. But ultimately they're not, though that they're appointed, but then at the same token, they have their own mandate. So I would say that it's probably the Federal Reserve. Treasury, of course, can literally upset the established order of that. So I would say, yeah, it's Treasury and Federal Reserve.
And most people on the Federal Reserve is an actual part of the federal government, right? Are they like a separate entity or
They're
something?
separate. They're separate. They're
Okay.
separate. So like they're still federal, but yet at the same token, they're not tied
Like
to
they
any
don't for the
other.
president or Congress or like
No,
the own thing.
no. They meet with them and everything else, but yet at the same token, like if Jerome Powell said like he's being interrogated, he's like, okay, that's your feeling, that's your thought, but I don't work for you.
Yeah.
So like you can give me your suggestions and everything else, and their suggestions, their opinions, but in the grand scheme of things, it's the Federal Reserve's
Yeah. I
decision.
could be wrong, but I remember the Bush ran for re-election against Clinton. He blamed the federal chairman for losing because the federal chairman at the time didn't raise or didn't lower interest or something, and Bush blamed him
It can have an impact.
for him losing the election. Yeah.
It can have an impact because it plays towards the sentiment, right? You know, like, and that's why I said like people vote based upon their economic interests. So it plays towards the sentiment. If sentiment is not too hot, then it has a huge impact on who's serving in the current cabinet. But yet at the same token, it may not even be their fault. The person is just doing their job, and ultimately, like, you know, really economics has nothing to do in certain cases. Like for example, we saw all these tax cuts for we saw this tax, you know, reduction and everything else for like, you know, in tax policy. Well, I mean, given that we saw that take place, what did that do? That brought inflation. That was the major part that brought inflation alongside with a few other things. Okay, now inflation's here. Now you have a new president that came into office at the same time that we saw inflation rear its ugly head. Now inflation is starting to like slowly come down, but not as fast as everybody wants it. Now everybody's blaming the president that ultimately that is here because of the fact that they see that the treasury is spending, but yet at the same token he's like, wait a minute, this wasn't my fault, I wasn't even here when this happened, like, you know. So I think that it's over time in like economics, over a cycle we go through economic cycles, and there's nothing that you can do about it. They're gonna happen.
Yeah. So you did a post on X on May 31st where you said global debt was like $350 trillion. So like, is it so? That's a lot of damn debt.
That's a
So
lot of debt.
like, can
Can
like,
we ever pay that off?
or can you just cancel it? Do you say like, or do you say, hey, country A owes this country 50 billion, are you 25 billion, and just like there's no. I mean, it's like it's mind boggling.
Well, okay, let me ask it in the question. So let's say that, okay, well, let's say that all debts around the world were canceled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now who's the global superpower now?
I mean, based on the military, United States probably.
Yeah, but then again, it's like we're in a whole different climate now.
Yeah,
Like, do we look at like military now is a part of it and it plays a major role, but okay, but you also have tech out there.
yeah.
Like so like you know, and then on top of that, it's like, well, how does that play out? Like,
So you're
what does
saying
that
that
look
would
like?
change the dynamics
It would
of what's
change
what?
the dynamics. It would change the dynamics. I mean, the fact that and the fact that it like, you know, there's a lot of countries out there that like we looked at, okay, of course we look at the overall debt, right? But then we also got to look at, okay, hey, America has never, you know, we've never defaulted
Yeah,
on our debt. I don't know how with this high amounts of debt, but hey, um, because I guess our revenue is still good. Um, but at the same token, it's like the thing that scares me is the fact that, okay, hey, well, what happens today that when we do start saying, okay, hey, we need to start cutting back, start paying, you know, what does that do to places like education? You know, like for example, we live in Washington State, and then here we are in Seattle, Washington, where Seattle is like at a $260 million deficit. They got to figure out how is it that
yeah.
they can cut back
And they
spending
said
on
like
a
they said like they raise taxes every day here.
right. So you got to raise taxes because you had an exorbitant amount of people leave the city to go to like places like Texas and, you know,
Yeah,
and Florida. Well, now that's not revenue that you're going to be able to collect. And of course, you live in a state where there's no state income tax. So you're not collecting that revenue. So there's a lot of things at play. So now it's like on an $8 billion budget
Yeah.
at a $260 million deficit. How do you reel it in?
Yeah, well, cancel debt. I'm pretty sure China would never agree to cancel the debt we owe them.
Absolutely not. That would be like, and all those folks that are holding all those treasury bonds and notes and everything else, like, look, now they're now, unless you're just saying that you're going to just pay them out dollar to dollar, okay, that's different. But I mean,
So is that really a bad thing that China owes so much of our debt?
I don't look. I look at it like this. It's like, you own the debt. Okay, you own the debt, but you don't own us.
Yeah.
So I I, I think that those two are not synonymous with each other.
Okay.
I think that ultimately, like, in order for China to be China or any of these other countries, they need, like, all countries must understand that economically and commerce wise, they need each other. Without them, then it upsets an entire order of things and knocks everything out of balance. And we saw some of that with, Russia, Ukraine, and how, like, that upset supply chain, that upset, like, commerce and everything else. Um, and again, it's like, just because you own a debt doesn't mean that you own a person
Okay.
or that you own a country.
And what's your philosophy on forgiving student loan debt?
I think that, honestly, if we were able to bail out banks, then we should bail out students. I mean, it's way smaller, but I look at it like this from an economic standpoint. If you wipe out the debt, imagine the GDP that you can create. Like, when we think about, like, the amount of growth that the US can, like, literally grow at. Now, of course, in the interim, you'll have a lot of pissed off people because it's like, okay, hey, my taxes raised or whatever it is to be able to subside for the debt. But in the grand scheme of things, like, look at the amount of jobs that you're going to be able to create. Look at the amount of, like, things in which that people are going to, like, if a person's spending, I've heard horror stories of people spending close to $1,500 a month. That's like an apartment rent just on their student loan debt. Like, imagine what you could do with that. Like, $1,500 a month. Like, let's say if you're PhD or grad school, or let's say $400, $200 or $600 a month for undergrad slash masters. That's a lot of money that could literally go into stimulating the
So should we
economy.
do that for everyone? Should be based on the situation. For example, suppose there's a guy there. I'm making this up.
Yeah.
30 years old. He has a degree in liberal arts, a degree in water weaving. He's never worked in his life.
Okay.
Are we gonna like just pay off his $100,000 loan and then like, I mean,
Has he never tried to go after a job or anything like that? So
he's
he's
just been
just
unemployed for 6 years. And of course,
has he actually tried to make payments towards the student loans? No.
we'll say no. I mean, of
All
course,
right.
that's a worst case scenario.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm gonna have to go absolute here. So if you're gonna pay, if you're gonna wipe it out, then you're just gonna have to wipe it.
Okay.
You're gonna just wipe it out for all. And then the hope is that, of course, you're gonna have the folks in whom which that will probably just never really contribute to
Yeah.
society at all. But the assumption is that the vast majority of folks would be contributors that will ultimately play a major role towards economic progress.
And I know, like, obviously, I like conservative against this, but I think you have the template to convince conservatives to vote for this, right? Because, of course, short term, we don't agree with it. But then, like I said, GDP,
Yep.
increase tax, increase whatever you want to call it, like the long term
Yep.
benefits. But yeah, but like most politicians, they see the short term. You see the memes. You want the plumbers and electricians to pay off this liberal arts education.
Well, yeah, I mean, but, and like I said, it's like, imagine, like I said, like, that's money that can just go into the economy. Like, that's money that can go into, like, neighborhoods and everything else. Like, for example, look at Medina, which is like one of, like, that's Billionaires Row. And, like, that most of the folks out there are millionaires, billionaires, right? They're one of the biggest counties that don't pay pretty much any taxes. And
Didn't
so,
know that.
like, at one point, I think the city of Medina went bankrupt, or they were on the verge of going bankrupt.
And for those who don't know, that town is like pretty much like if you're a 1%er, that's the town you live in.
That's the town that you.
And pretty much, it isn't like if you drive there, there's a sign that says you consent to have your car filmed,
Yeah,
24/7 in this town.
24/7. Yes, because the security is like that.
It's the original, keep outsiders out.
It is. That would be the true definition of the keeping the outsiders out. Like, or just keeping, we're keeping everything poor out and only
Yeah.
the wealthy in.
You make less than $1 million. What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? What is that? Like, that's a stick of gum to those individuals. But yeah, I mean the roads are trash, right? But they got, I mean, I don't really hear about any schools in Medina
Yeah.
that people go to. Like most of them will send their kids to like Lakeside or something like that. So I look at it in the sense that, of course, like if we look at the short term, if we always stay focused on the short term, then we won't go anywhere. Like, if we look at like across the entire board, whether you're a publicly traded investor or if you're like a person on a startup, of course, you can't escape the short term, vision because it's right there in front of you. You see what you see, that's in front of you. But a part of it is like you got to look towards the long term as it pertains to investment and say, okay, hey, well, this is the impact, 4 years from now. We're now in that era where it's like 4 years seems like long term, but look at how things change. Like in 4 years, Nvidia became a $3 trillion company. So, you know, with that to say, it's like we gotta like take off sometimes the short term goggles and put on the long term vision and see like what's coming down the road.
Mark, what's your take on universal basic income?
Oh man, this is the only time when you're ever gonna catch me like discussing like things like this. Like this is weird. Um, if I'm looking at it from a finance perspective, okay, it makes sense. But then like now I start asking other questions, right? Like, okay, hey, what's the timeline of this universal basic income? What is the impact of like, say, for example, the folks in whom which that are making the income? Do they get to participate in some of that? And what does that look like towards their flow? And then ultimately, how does the bill get paid?
Yeah.
Like, how is the bill getting paid? And also, what is the long, like, what are we looking at as it pertains to a long-term impact? I'm sure that they've done some studies on it and
Yeah.
shown that, like, I think that we've heard that there's some good things. I think that, I think that, like, this is the reason why we have pilot programs. I think that the US government should start doing more pilot programs and seeing, okay, hey, well, what does the data show us? Is the data showing us that, okay, that the person ultimately gets to a point where they're weaned off of it, where they don't no longer need it? Or is it something where they just become completely reliant on it? And then it's like, okay, what did it do outside of a person just like saying, well, hey, I'm getting this universal basic income. So what do I need to do this for?
Of course, that comes like people say AI is going to take jobs. Like the best example I have is like they say the truck drivers going to be out of jobs, right? And so what do you do with them?
I don't think that truck drivers are going to be out of a job. I don't think that they're going to be out of a job. I think that ultimately that their jobs are just going to ultimately evolve.
Well, yeah, like
I think
everything
that like
else.
we thought the same thing when like people thought the same thing when the internet came out, when
Yeah.
email came out. They're like,
Or
oh
or
well, I
or,
won't have an
or
assistant no
when
more.
cars came.
And when cars came, or say for example, when we saw like we always have that the first thing that the human mentality is so eager to hate something that it doesn't understand. And then once when we start to understand it, we sit back and we're like, oh, huh, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. So I look at it in the stance of, look, will there be some jobs that will go away? Yes. But will there be new jobs that are also created and evolved in the process? Yes. Now, my question that I'm going to ask myself is, are there more jobs coming in versus jobs that are going out? And if we can say that there are more jobs coming in than there are going out, I'm good with that. If it's more jobs going out than coming in, then okay, we need to take a look at that and see why.
And for the people out there who are like, kind of like stubborn, old head or whatever, don't want to retrain, is that's a matter of us saying, okay, the training is for you to find these new jobs.
Yeah,
If you don't want to do it, and there's nothing
you
we
don't
do
want to
for
do.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but I think that it's like we should still encourage people. Like I think the biggest thing, the reason why people are that they don't do things is because they're afraid. Like, a lot of times we do things out of fear. Like I said, the human mentality is to hate something that it doesn't understand. You know, but once when they start to understand it, they realize, oh, it's not that bad and it actually helps. It's just like, okay, hey, a person goes, it's like, okay, hey, I want to get out of this industry and maybe go work in cybersecurity. Okay, hey, go take your CompTIA Security Plus and maybe go work for the US government or go work at other companies. And it doesn't take that much. You can go spend $600 on Coursera now versus going to a program and spending $60,000 a year. So, I mean, with that, with the technology that is being created, it creates opportunities for folks in which that were once upon a time considered outliers or a certain part of a majority that just couldn't see a way in, and now it's creating space.
What like they say Coursera, YouTube University, all this free education. Do you think we're going to have colleges in like 10, 20 years?
I think that we will. I think that ultimately that we'll just have to drop a lot of the degrees in which that ultimately it's like like a general studies major. Like what? I mean, if you haven't learned general studies by the time that you finish like high school, or like, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
But like, degrees like becoming a doctor, still being a lawyer, an engineer, like whether it's civil, mechanical, electrical, those things, yeah, you can go learn some of those courses through a program, but I still believe that, certain education, certain things that you gather, certain knowledge and not only just theory, but actual real world knowledge that gets instilled in application of how to apply it. Yeah, you just can't replace that class.
So what's your take on this? Like, I think there's some people out there, like, they get it right. They have focus, they have drive.
Yeah.
They're trying to make the world a better place.
Yep.
Other people, not so much, right?
They want to watch the world burn.
Yeah. So, like, is that because the like genetics, the parenting, the people around them, or is just like random chance people like this, you think?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think it's a mixture of both. Like, you could be raised in a great household and yet you could still be you could still, make bad decisions or ultimately be a terrible person or be a phenomenal person. Um, I think it comes down to a matter of choices. A person is a sum. I always believe that a person is a sum total of their choices. So you could be raised in a great household and yet make terrible choices, and then ultimately here we are. You can be raised in a terrible household and still make great choices, and then ultimately here you are. But then at the same token, it's like, hey, like you could be a person in which that is raised in a great home, make great choices, but yeah, at the same token, something fell off track. And ultimately it grew, and that, the person that you once knew, they're no longer the same person. So it varies.
Do you think someone can be in one group and switch to the other group? Or you
Of course.
okay?
Of course. I mean, it's not to say that a person was always bad from day one. Like when I grew up, I was a terrorist. Like, well, okay, in context, like not like I was like I used to terrorize like people like my parents and stuff like that. I always caused mischief. Am I a troublemaker today? Probably, but not as much
Yeah.
as I once was. So yeah, I switched from a different group saying like, look, I got to grow up. I can't run at this speed anymore. Like, I got to make better decisions. So, like I said, choices.
So let me ask you this: like, suppose there's a group of people, right? Let's say they're economically well off, like they're like rich, they control jobs,
Yep.
they need to hire people that have networks and all kind of stuff.
Yep.
There's another group somewhere that's like economic disadvantage.
Mm.
Should the people above reach down and bring them up, or is it responsibility of the people at the bottom to find these opportunities?
I think that ultimately nobody ever makes it successfully by themselves. So you're going to need a little bit of both. You're going to need the people in whom which that you stand on the shoulders of, which are the people in which that you come from the bottom. You stand on their shoulders because ultimately they will want you to ultimately have a better life than what they've had, right? I mean, parents ultimately want their children to have a better life than what they ultimately experience. Communities that ultimately, help raise a child ultimately want them to like live in a world that was better than it found them. But then there's also the folks in which that have been very fortunate. Like you should realize that, okay, hey, you know, you've been given a lot, but at the same token, there's a requirement that in a sense of make it better. Like if you have the power to make, if you have the power of influence, then use that influence to make things around you better. Like, for me, it's like I look at it in the sense of, okay, the little successes that I've had, it's like, okay, well, make it better for the folks in whom which that come after me because of the fact that it's like, if not, then what world is that? What world is it if we don't provide opportunity, if we don't make opportunity for those in whom which that didn't have it? Like, what's the point?
So on your LinkedIn, it says DEI, disrupt everything innovation. Do you ever get any grief from anyone who says no, DI means diversity, inclusion, and equity?
Absolutely not.
No, no one's giving no grief yet. Okay, actually, I'm surprised of that. To be honest with you, I thought someone.
Well, hold on.
I
I
thought
take that back. I
someone
take that
like.
back. My wife,
Okay,
because my wife does a lot of HR
okay.
and she does a lot of inclusion and equity.
Yeah, I would have
My
thought
wife.
you got a lot of hate, like messages.
Not hate. No, I don't get hate. I mean, I get people that ask me questions about it. And I always tell them, I was like, if we're gonna reach a world that's equitable, it's gonna have to like the ideas are gonna have to be innovative. You're not gonna be able to solve the problems that ultimately with the same mindset of how we got here.
So how did you come up with that saying? Just pop in your head one day, or like how did that come about?
Well, I mean, it's always about innovation. Like, you've known me for quite some time. It's like, it's always about innovation. Innovation is disruptive. but at the same token, it creates opportunity. It creates spaces. It creates spaces even in the sense that you may do things selfishly, but then at the same token, unselfishly, it opens up opportunities. It opens up doors. Um, so I think that that's the only way that we're going to actually ever get there. We're going to have to be disruptive. We're going to have to cause a little trouble.
Also, somewhere I think it's a LinkedIn too, or your website
Okay.
says, "I have dedicated my entire career and life to leaving the world better than how it discovered me."
Yeah.
How are you going about doing this? Like, what's your process for making this come true?
Yeah. So, like, for example, the work that I've done at the Come Up series, honestly, I realized that there was a lot of financial information that essentially that people that look like me or just from different various backgrounds, they weren't getting because the information seemed so far away. Okay, my goal was to make the information a lot closer and much more digestible, so that way everybody can understand it. That's one. Because how I found the market, it was like a scary place. There was nobody there to really give me the blueprint or like, okay, hey, this is how you do this. I had my grandfather and his group of buddies, but then by the time when I got to college, it was like, okay, hey, you're on your own. Going to go talk to like professors who teach finance and not even able to get a straight answer. So I was like, okay, hey, like I don't want the people that follow after me to have to go through those types of hurdles. And if I can help them avoid some of those by like building better bridges, then let's do that. The work that I do at FTC, you know, again, making sure that founders of color have opportunity in which that they have a support system that can truly help them build, you know, and also be prepared for what's coming on the other side of the mountain. Didn't have that. A lot of times I had to feel that way through. I had to make a lot of mistakes in the process. So, again, it's like, leaving the world better than the way that it found you is like the world found me like this. This was the era that I dropped off in. Now it's like, okay, hey, well, can I help democratize that to make it more accessible and available to everybody so that way they can take advantage?
And as today, you think you're doing a good job of that
I
goal?
hope so, man. Like, I think that it's too soon to call. I'm not going to tell you that I've done it, I've solved it, because I'm still in the process, and I think that I probably will never. I'm lucky if I'm in a space where I can see the fruits of my labor fully like exemplified. Like I see pieces of it, but I haven't seen the full picture yet. And I hope that I can see it. I hope I can, be around long enough to be like, okay, hey, like, this is the impact. This is how it changed. And I can see like, okay, hey, I helped do that. But I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, damn, I'm still in the starting blocks.
So I'm kind of making these numbers up, but I think I read somewhere like, like if a dollar spent in the white community is like $1,000 to spend, Hispanic like 500, and I think in the black community it's like those like $15, right?
Yep.
Like, is there a way to impact or change this? Like, why is this cultural? Just like how things have been? Like,
I mean, like our community has been very much so well rounded into being consumer. We consume a lot, but it's like it's more so in the sense of it's nothing wrong with being a consumer, but also build it. That's how the dollar like really increases when you build things, and it extends not only just within your community, but it extends outward outside of the community, and then you bring it back and you make that investment into the community to enrich things. Like I'll give you an example. Growing up for me, there was a person by the name of Trish. She did Technology Access Foundation. She became a millionaire when Microsoft went public, and she had millions
yeah,
of
yeah, I
dollars.
know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So then she started this program, and I was the second year of that program. I came in the
Talk
second year of that
about the one
program.
out of Federal Way, right?
No, 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 no.
No.
This was in Seattle.
Oh,
Like,
so
so
it's a
they
different one.
started in
Okay.
Seattle, and
Okay. I
then
didn't
they
know
they
that.
ultimately extended to Federal Way and all
Okay.
these
Did
different
not know
places.
that.
So for us, it was like we were the second year that came in. First year they were, they were the first year, and so for us, it was just like okay, providing opportunity in space. Now looking at all of us that literally went through the program, a lot of us went through the tech space. A lot of us went through and like literally have had great careers and everything else within tech. But to see how that did that one specific thing of making that slight investment into things. Sorry if you guys hear butter in the background, but like having that small investment, look at what it's been able to produce. Like you got folks that are like literally dominating in VPs at tech companies and literally giving back to their community, making sure that like kids are able to learn and have the information. That's what it looks like. We just need more of that.
They ready to do a drink.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, what we drinking?
So I know you like rum. Here's some rum if you want some
I
rum.
do like rum.
Okay, give me some rum.
Oh man, see, look at this. It's got a certain type of logo on it. This is gonna ruin my day. Just kidding. All right, are we both? Are we both?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you? You're the host, so I'm gonna. You just say when.
That's good.
Okay. There we go. We're gonna start it off like that. I think we're actually pretty level on the pour. Wow. All right,
Cheers, my
sir.
friend.
Cheers. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's dangerous.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So next one, you have a motto, be remarkable.
Oh man, yeah.
What does that mean to you? Like define be remarkable. Like is that expectation for yourself, expectation of people around you?
It's both. It's both. Like, when you see that on my email signature, it's just, reminding everybody, like, whatever you do, like, make sure that's remarkable. Pass it on. Pass it on to other folks. I mean, now I see yours and I think it's like be great every day. Like that's dope because I think like we all have the opportunity like this, like even if you have a bad day, it's 24 hours. Okay, the next day, let's work on like okay, forget about yesterday. Let's focus on today. What is it that we can do that can like literally be
something
great
small,
today? Doesn't have to be
like you don't have to cure cancer every day.
Right. You don't have to cure cancer. If you can, great.
Yeah.
But if you can't, like, okay, what's the iteration process towards getting there? And you may not ever cure cancer, but you may have removed a lot of the barriers for somebody else to step in and say, okay, hey, like you're picking up where that person left off. So it's like those are the things that are remarkable. Like make the journey remarkable.
So back to finance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like public schools do a horrible job teaching kids like finance stuff.
They don't teach it at all.
Parents probably do a horrible job of teaching finance, right? Like we just leave kids like keep out in the open here flapping our figure out, right?
Yeah.
It's like, of course, you change that with your series and stuff, but like, how do we make people spend on money, right? Like, is it even possible? Is that it's like a moonshot you're trying to do?
How do we make them? Wait, how do we make them do what now?
Become smarter on money.
How do we make them smarter on money? Okay, so first things first, you have to address the relationship that they have. Like I think that like in a lot of families, don't sit down and talk to each other and talk together and talk about like, okay, hey, well, what is it that mom and dad do, or what is that mom or what is that dad does, whatever the dynamic is, and essentially we don't talk about those things. The other thing that we don't talk about is, hey, like the relationship with money, like it's very taboo. And I found that when we were doing the come up series, like I realized like nobody really talked about it. Like it was just like, keeping it to myself. I don't want to talk to anybody. But once when we started desensitizing people towards that conversation, we started noticing that things started changing. And I think that we need to do more of that. I think that schools need to do that, like understanding how things work versus just telling us, okay, this, it just works like this. No, why does it work like okay, understanding like, okay, hey, like, why is it that the value, like why is it that you should be more conscious as it pertains to your spending? Where does the dollar go? Like, I wish schools taught about how companies make money. Like I sit down sometimes, like one of the things I do with my nieces and nephews, which I have realized none of them learn, and they take like AP classes and all this other stuff, which is astounding to me. And I sit back and ask them, how does Apple work as a company? They're like, they just sell phones. Really? But then it opens up the door to have a conversation, which now is like, okay, now they're having this conversation with me. And once when they figure out, oh, I got it, it's amazing because now the conversation stems and they're not afraid to carry that conversation to their friends and everything. But it's just like, okay, hey, we gotta have the conversations. I think that that's the part that's missing in education. Education goes beyond the building. It's just if a person learns, that's education.
And what age should we start teaching kids money? Like 3, 5,
as soon as
as soon
possible.
as possible.
As soon as possible. Like when a kid wants to go buy something at the store, when they want you to buy something for them at the store, there it is. Let me learn you something little,
Maybe you do the cost benefit analysis of this.
or opportunity cost. Like, look, hey, you want me to go buy you want me to go buy you a phone. This phone costs $1,000. Our mortgage, what mom and dad have to pay every month is $3,000. So by me spending $1,000 towards your phone, literally leaves mom and dad $1,000 at a deficit. How do we make that? How do we make that up? Well, we'll still have some money, but then ultimately we're gonna have to figure out what is that we're gonna cut in order to make that happen for you to get this $1,000 phone.
We spend $1,000 a month on you for food. We buy the phone for you if you don't go a month.
Hey, peanut butter and jelly is about to be a thing. But like I said, it's understanding those conversations, those type of critical thinking conversations with kids. And the thing is like we always try to shield them from it because we feel like, okay, well, they're not ready for it, or
Like we're trying to protect them,
we're
right?
trying to protect them, like they can't handle it. And I'm like, these kids are very resilient. Like nobody can tell me anything about a kid's resilience. They survived the pandemic. I just went to my niece's graduation, and her freshman year was 2020. Now it's like she's getting ready to go to school for business. Look, you guys can't tell me anything. These kids are resilient.
So tell me more about the come up series.
Yeah.
Like how it got started. What's it about?
Oh, so the come up series got started. Jolene, my co-host and co-creator, I started off mentoring her in the market. Like a lot of folks have like said, "Hey, Mark, you pull me aside, teach me like how to invest or how to trade in the market." And at the time, I had the time to do so. I was like, "Okay, hey, cool." Um, and then she posted on it. Like we went through about a year and a half, and she made quite the return. And she posted on her social media, "Hey, I made like this is the percentage that I made." Like she was just doing it as a progress report. Like she was very proud of herself. Um, and then next thing you know, it's like her social media is flooded, and I'm like,
Like I
and
might
then
have something here.
she responded like to some folks, and she was like, yeah, my mentor Mark helped me out.
It's kind of the blue.
It just became a firestorm at
Yeah.
that point. It became a firestorm, and so I'm like, I'm bombarded with messages. She's bombarded with messages. I'm overwhelmed. So I'm sitting there at the supercharger station, just charging my car, and I'm like, Lynn, like, thanks for the heads up. And so then she was like, yeah, I know. And then there was just like this awkward quiet between us. And she was like, but you realize, like, that this could really, like, if we really did something like this and like literally showed people, like, the way and literally you got to educate them, this would be monumental.
And it's a series that y'all still doing.
Yeah, we still do it. I mean, we're
It's like
on.
a weekly series, monthly series.
So we went from doing like lives like every like Tuesday and Thursday, then to doing every Tuesday. And then we just kind of like got to this place where we were like, we've already filmed over 400 episodes. And so we were just like, okay, let's like, I needed a break and Jolene needed a break. Like it was just like the burnout of being a content creator. For those that don't understand, it's like, it's a very real thing. And I was getting burnt out. I was like, hey, like, I'm typically working on these things behind the scenes. And then I only sometimes only had like 30 minutes to prepare for an episode right before we go live. And so Jolene was like, hey, I want to learn about this. Can you teach me this today? That's the episode. Um, and so then we got to this point where it's just like I said, almost burnout. So I was like, okay, well, I need to go back and like level set and like what is it that I want to teach moving forward. And now that we're getting ready to go into a whole different phase, which is still going to talk about investments and everything else. But I also want to talk about the other side of investments, the other wealth transfer, small business, startups, those things, because those things create wealth transfers just as big, if not bigger, than the publicly traded market.
So recently, you were a keynote spoker at I think it's called Venture Co-working Mechanics Studio in Bellevue
Yep.
for a Black Founders and Funders event. Can you
Mm-hmm.
talk about that?
Yeah. So Evan Poncelet invited me to literally come and speak. Um, and pretty much it was amazing. Um, it was far because it's Bellevue, but it was good. Um, And it was just more so in the sense of just like sharing, my insights, some of the things in which that founders, don't really look at, though that they're going through those challenges, but nobody ever really takes a step back to like really think about those things, my journey. Um, and honestly, I mean, it was great. I mean, I think that they're doing some pretty phenomenal stuff there. The questions that was asked were good. I wish I had more time to like do that and like to extend the interview, but like, hey, I get to do this one, so I'm probably sure that this is gonna be an extension. So
So, what's your take on the Seattle startup scene? Like, my criticism has always been there's always this like silos, right? There's like Founders Live, you take Northwest,
yeah,
thinking about you, you're like Startup Haven, you go on them, right?
yeah,
Like, but that's not like any of them communicate, right?
yeah,
Like, everyone's in these silos. There's no cross pollination, for lack of a better term, right?
yep.
Like, think this is a Seattle culture thing, or is
I
this?
think so. I think it's a part of that, and then also in the sense that Seattle is very much so publicly traded companies. I mean, with a few growth companies here, and but people don't realize that there's a lot of companies that IPO or have successful exits that come out of Seattle. But the problem is that you have a lot of folks that are trying to step into the venture capital space that could be the new bloods to change over the old guard of venture capital per se. But a lot of them just don't know how to get started, or there's not really a strong ecosystem here. That I hope that that changes, and I'm doing some work to try to help change that. Um, because my gripe with Seattle startup community, and it hasn't changed. And it
Yeah,
hasn't changed at all. And I sit back and look at it, and I'm like, man, we could do so much better. I think that our startups like that literally come out of Seattle are better than like, a lot of the companies that you see coming out of San Francisco, Silicon Valley, or, Texas or Florida or Boulder, Colorado or New York. I think that we're just better. I think that it's like, when you look at the infrastructure that surrounds Seattle, there's a lot of millionaires per capita here. So you don't really have to worry about that issue. It's just more so how you get them into the fold. Um, the angel groups, I'm not really quite a fan of. I really believe that honestly, like there just needs to be a complete reset on that one. Venture capital community is good, but yet at the same token, it's just like it just sometimes moves too slow. Um, let's see here. Also, it's like this gatekeeping thing where it's just like we're just not so like we need to accept risk. I think that's the biggest thing. If I was to sum it up, like Seattle's become very risk averse. For the startups that ultimately like a lot of the startups here that raise capital, they'll have some of the folks that are part of their round, but majority of their round will be filled by Silicon Valley. Why?
yeah.
That shouldn't even be a conversation. I mean, not to say that Silicon Valley money is great, but it's just like, okay, well, why is it that we can't mimic that
Yeah,
model?
I know some investors who say we only invest in companies that deserve funding, right? I can like easily name 10 people I know who couldn't get a meeting here,
Exactly.
went the Bay Area, New York, or somewhere, and within 6 months got money, right?
Exactly. And it's like I said, we got to do better. We as a whole, as a city, and also as a state, we got to do better because it's these. The one thing I will say though is that the companies here, they're good, they're very good, and they're coached very, very well. Problem is, like I said, it's missing that other side of that infrastructure of the folks that are willing
So
to take
someone told me
risks.
this one time. I'm getting your take on it, right? I was
Yeah,
talking to this guy in the Bay Area, and he's telling me the reason Seattle and the Bay Area so different. He said in the Bay Area, pretty much all the VCs were former startup investors. I mean, former founders, right?
yeah,
And he said also when the Bay Area, when a supposed company gets acquired for say $50 million, they reinvest in the community.
yeah,
Whereas in Seattle, all the investors are like from Microsoft, Amazon, have no idea to start a company. And
yeah.
for some reason, the people that get acquired here usually don't reinvest in
No,
community.
they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Like, I mean, it's very rare. Like, like normally when you became acquired, then ultimately you would ultimately go and either start your own fund or go join a fund as an LP. And then essentially you keep the ecosystem going, you keep it growing. You don't really see that happening. It's a very unfortunate that that happens. And a lot of the folks that made their money here made their money when companies went public, or they then wanted to do real estate, and then it's like because real estate is considered safer, and then of course like then they join these angel groups, which they think they're good for them, but then it's just like, okay, hey, a startup shouldn't have to spend $25,000 in order to raise capital.
Yeah.
Like if a startup idea is good and the founders, if they have like showing the proof, that they are building a viable idea that is ultimately getting traction, and that's why
And
they
why are you
should
making
invest
people
in
go
it.
through a 6 month process?
It should not be.
No matter wrong, the amount of money like some of these groups give you, it's a lot of money, but cost benefit analysis, all the time you spent, I don't know.
Again, it's like you're expecting companies to move, and that's the thing. San Francisco would be considered growth investors. They focus on growth. Seattle investors would be considered value investors. Folks that care about, like, in publicly traded markets, they care about dividends and all this other stuff, valuations, which is, I mean, they both serve a good purpose. But we're talking about startups here. Yeah. We're talking about folks in whom that are trying to validate an idea, and they're getting validation in the market that shows that there's traction. Now it just means that essentially that it needs the investment. And I think the thing is, like, if you're going through a 2 to 3 month, due diligence process on a pre-seed or a seed company, why? Like, they've already done X amount of the work that ultimately shows you that they got here. So why is it taking so
Yeah, that's no joke too. Seattle Investor only have an A-round metrics for pre-seed round. And so like every month I have MC this thing called Seattle Startup Expo, like early stage pitch ups.
Mm-hmm.
So I met one guy yesterday, he's in Seattle. He said he met with a VC, he didn't tell me the name. He said they told him, come back to us if you have $500,000 MMR. Like $500,000. I mean, another guy came from the Bay Area for the couple of days. He said he has a friend who just closed a $10 million investment from Greylock. He has no metric. The $10 million help him get to his first metric.
Exactly.
Like this is craziness.
I mean,
so you're telling me, everyone, if you're a startup, you need to move to the Bay Area?
No. What I'm telling you is, if you have a startup, you don't have to move to the Bay Area, but you just need to go look towards the Bay Area.
You better have a
lead you
plan to spend some time there, right?
Spend some time there, because, and it pains me to say that. I mean, you know me well enough to know that hurts me to have to say, look, you're gonna have to go to Silicon Valley, you're gonna have to go here in order to raise capital, like to raise strong capital, because it's a shame that the fact that it's like, look, they're not afraid to take risk, and it's like, everybody here wants to have the winner, or they want to have like winners. Your portfolio is not always going to be filled with winners.
Yeah, the best example I have, I wish I could remember her name, but she had some kind of sales tech platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like no one gave her a meeting at all, or nothing at all, right? She had to get a job. She took a job in New York City, still did the startup side. A year later, she had like a $500,000 seed round, blew up. Someone also gave her like $10 million seed round. After the seed round, she said, like, every investor in Seattle, hey, congrats for success. Let's have a conversation. And of course, she was like, Jason, I don't want to be petty, but fuck them motherfuckers, right? I said, you can't.
Facts.
I said, you can't be like that.
Like I said,
right?
it leaves a sour taste in people's mouths.
Yeah.
Like, it does leave a sour taste in people's mouths. And the reason why is because, again, you nailed it on the head. The reason why Silicon Valley is better is because of the fact that those folks were startups. They were founders once. A lot of the folks here, they may have worked at the company where they worked underneath those founders, but they were never founders.
Yeah.
And it's like they understand what it, like, some of the metrics to success. But then at the same token, if you ever ask them to go out there and create that, could they do that?
And you think since they come from Amazon, Microsoft, they're using like these big company metrics,
yes,
to determine if these
founders. That's why I said it's like you're using value-based investing versus, like, that's not startups. Is like, if you're looking to be a value-based investor in startups, then you're in the wrong business. Startups is all about growth. It's all about, okay, hey, can I spot the growth? Is there opportunity? Is there viability towards this growth? And what you're doing right now, is it pointing you in the direction towards reaching that area of growth?
To be a VC, I know you have to have a certain amount of money, or not money, but like you have to have, like, is that certification you get? Or anyone can say, I'm Jason Cavness, I'm a VC.
Yeah, you can be a VC.
Okay.
I mean, if you meet the metrics as it pertains to, like, becoming an accredited investor. Okay. You could be an angel investor too. You could be an angel investor too. And essentially being an angel investor is just like, hey, well, you make micro investments.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave McClure invested in 500 startups as an angel investor. He put his money where his mouth is. Like, hey, you got a great idea? Okay, pitch it to me. Let me hear it. I'll ask you questions. If it sounds good, and if ultimately the data checks out, okay, boom, here's a check next week.
So do you see any like changes in the Seattle startup scene? It's just like, is this the way it is, and people just have to, like,
I definitely see a change coming. I definitely see that there's entities here that that are looking to step into the city and possibly make a run at changing of the old guard. I mean, keep in mind, it's like you got the Madronas of the world that have been here, and their claim to fame is, like, being one of the first investors in Amazon. And a lot of folks are running off of like, their claims to fame of working on specific companies within enterprise or, startups that have literally gone on to be growth companies. Great. But at the same token, it's like the ecosystem is ultimately going to die if people don't realize and wake up that, okay, hey, we need to see some significant changes here. And somebody's got to bring that conversation to the forefront. So.
Is there any like tech out there that excites you? Of course, AI, other stuff like is there any like specific tech that's exciting to you right now?
Oh, of course. I mean, like for me, I'm a technophile. Like I love all things tech. Like it's like I'm a tech enthusiast to my core. So iterations excite me.
Do you still do the I think the beta testing on Apple?
Of course, I'm using iOS 18 right now.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's to my like I'm like a kid in a candy store. As soon as the announcement's over, 15 minutes later, hey, is the build available? I'm still that guy. But what excites me is the fact that we're starting to see that generative AI and everything else is moving from cloud to personal devices. I think that's the crazy part right there. That honestly, can you believe it that we're here where we're seeing personal computing and everything else literally getting to the foray of, hey, wow, it's no longer just going to be in the cloud anymore. You're going to have all this AI power in your hand. That's magical.
Do you think people are ready for that? A lot of people still can't like turn their TV on,
Hey, look, that I escalate that to a higher power. It's above me. But I think that in the grand scheme of things, the world is ready. We're past the point of people needing instruction manuals of how to use things. We're past the point of like, okay, hey, well, when you get a device, you know exactly how it works. We're past that point. Now we're at the place of like where it's like now it's the expectation of things working. It's the expectation of like, okay, hey, well, this works, but what else can I do with it now?
What's like a tech prediction you have for the future? Like mine is, I believe like
Skynet.
not Skynet.
Okay,
Hopefully,
good.
I think in a sooner than later, you know how you go on cruises right now?
Yeah.
Be able to go to like cruises in space and go from like hotel to hotel in space.
Okay.
That's what I think.
I think that we're
That's my
probably like
tech
15
prediction.
years out, but yeah, I think that can happen. I think that ultimately the teleportation would be cool.
Talk about some Rick and Morty stuff.
Yeah, that would be amazing. But I think that ultimately we're getting into the place of like, holographic communication. I think that would be amazing. Which also stems it into many different other spaces. I think we're at the very eve of robotics. I mean, of course, don't get me wrong, your Boston Dynamics and everybody else, they've done very, very well. But I think that now that the AI is getting so good, that now is going to need actual
Have you
real
seen what they're
world.
doing in China?
Of course.
That's insane.
But I mean, but it's like, it's the iterative process. We were bound to get there.
Yeah.
But now we're in a growth phase where it's like things are going to come a lot faster. We're not like I think we're in AI inning 3 point. We're in the fourth inning of AI.
So you gonna like buy a robot for your house?
I mean, my wife says if it cooks and cleans and doesn't break dishes, then we're good.
Yeah, but thinking with that, like the joke I have is like close your Erica, tell the robot, hey, cook me dinner. I want some pork ribs. Mark, you look at the restaurants, blah blah blah. You eat a salad today.
I mean, my wife would do the same thing.
So
I mean,
what's the difference?
hey, at least you're looking out for me,
Yeah, what's the
right?
difference?
At
Okay.
least you're looking out for me.
I joke around too. I'll get a robot. That shit has to be like 4'2", 55 pounds. I don't want no like fucking 6'2", 250-pound robot in my house, right?
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you have to carry all the like. Imagine if you have to like build something in your
Yeah,
backyard.
what if it goes rogue? What if someone hacks it? It says take out Jason.
Wow. Well, I mean, hey, I look at it and this is like, look, if somebody did that to me, I'm like, hey, take out Mark. Look, I hope the life that I lived was great. I hope that it was amazing. Somebody's gonna learn and fix this. I just happen to be the martyr for this iteration of fixes.
Yeah, it's definitely coming right. I don't think there's anything anyone can do to stop it. But next question, like, do you think the average American realizes like what's coming, like how advanced tech's gonna be, or do you think there's like they're in this bubble they have? They have no idea.
Um, I think the average American has an idea, but they don't fully know yet. I think that they're only seeing what they see, but I think that they're participating in the discussion now, which is a good thing. So now they can say, okay, hey, well, okay, we've got these things going on. I can kind of put piece two and two together. And then common sense ultimately takes over and it's just like, all right, well.
I mean, what happens? Someone's speeding, they get pulled over, and a robot cop walks up to them.
Oh, well,
They give
then
them a
you're screwed.
ticket.
Imagine trying to like, we're gonna get there, but imagine trying to like debate that ticket.
Yeah,
Like you're done. Like I think that we're getting to a place where I think that we're going to also start having cameras and AI cameras that also detect speed and like
yeah,
record it at the time and everything else and be able to show you like from a mile of you speeding.
yeah.
So I I think the thing is like again we always look at the it's good for us that we're looking at the negative because it also keeps us grounded of like okay hey these things can happen and of course we're seeing all the great things but my thing is it's like I'm looking at it in the sense of the gray area like you know what else? Like what else is this gonna spawn? What is this gonna birth?
Do you think any? Do you think there's anything after AI?
Oh yeah. I mean it flips. Intelligent assistant.
Okay,
When AI gets to a place in which that is like, okay, hey, we've done so well, and then it's gotten to a place of like so much training, now it just becomes intelligent assistance and now it's just application.
so here's one go off the rails. I know a lot of people out there, some regular smart people, they'll argue that since AI is around, that proves simulation theory.
I mean, yeah, it could.
Yeah,
I mean, it could, but I mean, I still think that there's some things in which that, has it fully proven
mhm.
simulation theory? Probably.
Okay,
We're probably like because mind you we're still training models
yeah,
and these are just like people are so excited over large language models
hmm,
things in which that have already existed if you think about it we could have been using our social media to just train a lot of these language models in the beginning like that's the real kicker to it like think about all those debates that people had on social media about Michael Jordan or LeBron James being the GOAT.
yeah.
I mean, think about all the times that AI was just sitting there, like the training models were just sitting there, like, oh, okay, well, all right. All the recipe data, all the foodies out there, it's just learning. It's still learning. We're still training. And it all started from is this a cat? Is this a dog?
Yeah, that's true. So next, talk about something else you do called From the Culture.
Okay.
How that got started, and talk about that.
So it got started when ultimately
And that's different from the Come Up series, right? Two
different.
different things. Okay.
But From the Culture is the parent company to the Come Up series. So essentially it's like we oversee the Come Up series, but Jolene runs it as CEO. She runs the Come Up series as CEO. So the way that From the Culture started was the fact that I was in venture capital and I was just like, okay, hey, this is great, but it sucks. I hated everything about it. The reason why I hated venture capital was because of the fact that it felt like a suit.
They scaled up just a little bit.
Oh yeah, so I felt like a suit. Um, you hear a lot of great ideas, you invest in them, and then that's it. Like where's the fun in that? Like, okay, hey, yeah, sign term sheet, whatever. But the ultimate fun is like being in the room when the problem is being solved. Like, you can't replace that energy. You can't replace that part of like, being able to ask yourself, where was I when this was solved? And then it just really gave light to me when I said, okay, I looked back and I said, all right, well, there's a lot of great ideas from a lot of great founders who don't really look like the typical status quo. Why is it that, I'm not seeing them? And so then I started like asking the question of like, what's going on here? And I realized a lot of these folks have great ideas, but they just don't have the technical know-how. Like they don't know how to write code. They don't know how to write a backend infrastructure in Node.js or do the front end or do the design in Figma. They don't know how to do the API integration and all that other stuff. That's not them. They just have a great idea and they can probably execute on the business side, but essentially they need help. And so I literally said, okay, hey, well, I like some of the things of venture capital, which is like having the equitable positions. But then I also like the entrepreneurship side where I get to get my hands dirty. So how is that I can like literally make those two things work? And then that's when I started giving FTC some serious thought. Really work with companies from the ground up, take a minority stake. So our average take is anywhere from 25 to roughly 30% of a company. So we're founders and we stick with them for the lifeblood of the company. And then we get to help them build not only an MVP, but also get them to a place of scale. They'll probably remove us around Series B, which most of the time, you normally start to make those transitions in startups around Series B. And we're okay with that if they need us, but we can always keep the board seat as an advisory and also a person that's fighting in their corner. But I mean, that's really the basis of how like I thought about like FTC. I was like venture capital itself. Yeah, it plays a role, but it's not the only role. Like things got to change.
And do you still make investments as an actual VC, or
No,
that's
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 done.
that's
That's
part of
done.
your life?
That's
Okay.
done.
So when you're doing your VC thing, right? What what would make you like take a pitch or make you invest? Like what would a founder do to impress you, so to speak, for lack of a better term?
I'm looking for another me.
Yeah, good luck with that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've ran into a few, but I mean, all jokes aside, I'm looking for like, when I sit in a pitch, I'm looking for like there's the pitches that wow you, there's the pitches that scare you, and then there's the pitches that are those are those ones that are in the mix where they're a mixture of both, and they make you just say, "Holy shit." Those are the ones that you invest in. The other ones are the ones in which that they may not be ready yet, or they may have something that's viable, but at the same token, it's like, okay, well, it's a great idea, but what's the staying power look like? And so when I look at those things, I'm just like, okay, that if you can make me say holy shit or make me scared of something in the sense of a good way, oh yeah. I mean, I would want to invest in that.
And like, how do you determine like your equity stake? Was it just case by case basis, or in income you invested, it was the same equity?
It's
Like,
case by case basis. And then on top of that, it depends upon what is it that they're trying to raise, valuations, what does that structure look like? I mean, it's never a one size fits all thing.
so let's suppose someone gave you a pitch, you were like the company,
Mhm.
but they're like, yeah, we have a $50 million valuation, right? Were you like, okay, dude, were you like
Is this their first
first time,
investment?
first
Oh,
investment?
God.
Would you be like, okay, obviously this guy has no clue, I'm not gonna deal with them, or would you try to coach and mentor him, like, hey, guy, like this is unrealistic?
I always believe that if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money.
Yeah,
So I firmly believe that if a person came to me asking for $50 million as a first answer or asking for a $50 million
you'd be like,
valuation,
is your startup curing cancer?
I'm like, what is it made of? Panda pee or something? Like, no, but I mean, I'm gonna give him advice. I'm gonna like I was the type of investor, though I was quiet. Um, if I said no, I would tell you why. Most investors won't. They'll just say no. They'll just be like, okay, hey, your business is unfundable, but you're not gonna tell them why your business is unfundable. Me, I would tell you why. I'd be like, hey, I just don't. I'm just not seeing the product market fit. Hey, I think that you're over. I think that you've placed this valuation too rich. And ultimately, like, let's say that if I invested into this $50 million like valuation, okay, well, who's going to be the next person? Like, how do I get out? What's the pathway for
Yeah.
me to get out of this investment? What does that look like? I mean, if are you going to come in at 100 million? Are you going to come in at 200 million? Like, what does that look like? And so, just really breaking it down for folks and like literally having those questions while we're going through the pitch. And then, of course, if I say no, I would always give like my advice, whether or not you take it or leave it, like that's up to you. But I would rather like tell you, here's the reason why I said no, and then here's my advice for you, moving forward.
So startups you invested, do you have any home runs? You just had a bunch of singles, so to speak.
I don't, well, it depends upon what you define as home run. None of them went public. I think that's the ultimate home run, a company that goes public. Have I had some mini acquisitions here and there? Yeah. Were they enough to like literally say, okay, hey, like, I'm stepping away. I'm about to go buy an island. Probably not. Um, but no, I mean, it's been pretty good. But then at the same token, it's just like, okay, hey, like for me, real talk, I didn't really do it for the money. I did it because of the fact that I wanted to invest in great ideas that I wanted to see come into the that I wanted to see come to fruition and grow. Um, and ultimately, also in legacy. For me, it's about legacy. Like even the thing at FTC, it's all about legacy. I'll be able to sit back and tell my kid one day, um, "Hey, your dad invested in that, or your dad, built that."
So this is on a Twitter X2. I'm happy you read this is prediction for beginning of the year. I'm happy you read
Oh
that.
God.
And would you keep that the same, redo it, or
Okay, so here's my thoughts for 2024 Nasdaq. For 2024 Nasdaq to hit 18.75 to 19,000. S&P 500 reaches 51 5,000 to 5.1 thousand. Expect some volatility early around earnings top of the year. and also around election starting late August. Fed cuts by 150 basis points. Around May, sleepers are Amazon, Intel, Google, FDN, Merkle Insurance, Ubi. Uh, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you standing by that, or you want to make some changes, or
Oh yeah, I definitely got to make some changes. So, I mean, I was sub out Intel, though that I believe that they're coming forth. But if Intel is not going to be the foundry for other chip companies, then I say no. I mean, Intel will just be there; it'll just be around. But I would sub out Intel for AMD. Amazon, I still believe, based upon what is it that I know. I believe that their AI chip is going to be something that like people need to pay attention to. Um, so yeah, there's that. I mean, it surpassed what my expectations were for the S&P 500 because we're now at like 5,400, knocking on the door of 5,500 for July. Fed cuts. I mean, of course, I'm at the mercy of the market as it pertains to inflation, so we didn't get that down. So of course, we're probably going to have one rate cut, and then probably have 100 basis point cuts in 2025. At Nasdaq, I still believe that we're probably going to hit that. I still believe that we're going to hit like 18,750. I still believe that that's possible. I think that Apple, Microsoft, and a few others are going to lead that.
what's the company out there like people don't really know about? Like I think people know about Nvidia now. I'm probably say that wrong. What's the company out there like doing good
No,
things?
you actually said it right.
I did.
A lot of people
That's
say
amazing.
Nvidia,
Okay.
which really grinds my gears. But go ahead.
So what's the company out there like people don't know about, but you think is gonna like really like come to the forefront pretty soon?
Um, I mean, companies that are non-public or public or publicly traded.
Either one.
I think that you have a great deal of companies that are non-publicly traded, that are just sitting there in the private market that they should have gone public a long time ago, but they didn't. And I understand the reason why is because it's a liquidity problem. Like companies like Stripe, I think that they should have been gone public, maybe for my own selfish reasons because I own shares of it. But um, but yeah, I mean, companies that people should pay attention to. Let me pull up my handy dandy watch list on the publicly traded market side real quick. And yes, I have a very extensive watch list over here. Um, oh, look at that. Adobe shot up 14.7%. So I can't put that on the table now because I was gonna say that and I was like, ugh. Netflix. Honestly, people know about Netflix, but they know about it for a streaming video, but they don't really pay attention to its gaming. And I think that Netflix is in a position that like they spend a lot, but if they really want to make a play towards like really spending towards like, stuff and going further, I think that they stand a good shot. I think that they stand a good shot as it pertains to acquiring like the Ubisofts and the EAs of the world. Um, let's see, ARM, of course, because they're the supplier of a lot of chips, and of course Tesla.
Yeah. So like from my point of view, it's like never easy to raise money, right?
Mm-mm.
Even in 2020, even they give money away, it's hard to raise money. It's always hard to fundraise, right? Do you think that's going to change coming up anytime soon, or it's always going to be a slug for these early stage founders, so to speak?
I think it's going to be kind of like a challenge at first, but I think that we're getting more so into the part where it's like a lot of the funds are getting a little bit more, they're going to get a little bit more lax and, ultimately step it back a little bit, which thank you. I think after the whole Silicon Valley Bank situation where everybody was doing their bank run, I think that kind of spooked the market and that sent shockwaves across the entire venture capital community. But also keep in mind from 2016 to 20, let's say 2021, a lot of the VCs were running like pretty fast and loose as it pertains to like, signing term sheets and everything else. I mean, the pandemic also didn't help because of the fact that you couldn't really be there, but you just had to like, ideas were still flowing, they were still raising capital. But the market has changed. I mean, variable change happens and ultimately things change alongside with it. Um, and I think that with, people getting a little bit more strenuous on their capital, and their requirements of like what they're looking for successful companies, I think that we're still in those tough innings, but I think that we're getting ready to move out of it where it's like we get back and it's like, okay, coast is clear. A lot of funds have raised their capital and now they're competing to ultimately lead rounds again. So and the ideas are going to keep flowing. I think that we're going to ready to see like the flush of the early AI companies that weren't, that were just Nothing. And then we're going to start seeing the next phase of AI companies or next phase of startups that are just doing phenomenally well, that are well weathered and ready for capital.
What advice you have for founders, whether like early stage, have a product out there? Like, what's your advice for them?
I mean, traction is it's all about traction. I mean, there's levels to traction. Like for example, the creme de la creme of traction would probably be if people are willing to give you their social, that type of data, that has high value. But then there's also like the lower tier where it's like they're willing to give you their name, their email because it's so abundant out there. But also if they're willing to give you data about themselves, like things that are intricate, things that tell you a little bit more about who they are as a consumer, that carries weight. So focus on more so in the sense of, really traction. Um, and everything tends to fall into place at that point. Like, because when you reach that area of traction, it's like, okay, hey, it shows success.
So I think on one side, you have people who will tell you, like, I'm kind of exaggerating,
Yeah.
get $100,000 MMR, product market fit, everything in 30 days, right? Or or don't do it right. And other people say, never quit. Ours has to be somewhere in the middle, right?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a place in the middle. Like if you're showing that essentially that there's things that are just not happening, either you're going to need to pivot or you're just going to just need to say that this is a failure. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing wrong. Like startups fall apart all the time. Like they go under all the time. The success rate as it pertains to startups being successful is not that high.
No.
Um, as it pertains to the creme de la creme of success. But when you get into you know, into the lower tier, like, small acquisitions are still viable. They're doing well. I mean, we kind of like poo poo and frown upon $1 million in ARR or MRR if your business is doing that. But that's something that's fundable. Like that's just a matter of just like teaching somebody like, okay, hey, you got $1 million in revenue in a year. What were your profit margins like? Okay, well now we're just making iterations and fine tuning. Like everybody, like you said, everybody's expecting the companies that they invest in to be like, your Nvidias, your AMDs, or your Amazons, your Apples, your Facebooks, and everything else. And it's like their expectations are just too unrealistic. You have to remember, all big businesses were once upon a time small.
Even Amazon, right?
Even Amazon, like now the whole idea of like where all these startups start in their garage, probably not
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, but that's okay. Like, but they're not gonna just come out of the gate like just like on track. They're not gonna just be like, okay, hey, well, we're running the streets and everything else. No, they're gonna go through their challenges and everything else, and that's what you want. Like you look forward to those things. So,
Mark, can you talk about some of the people who have mentored you through the past?
oh God, yeah. I mean, it's too many to count. One, um, from former professors to my grandfather, my boss at the last company that I ever worked for, cause um, they one thing that I look for in my mentors is that they were all people that I aspired to like certain aspects about them that I aspired to ultimately somewhat be like. So like for Kaz, like what he did on a foundational basis for business, and then on top of that, what he did for the community, like that's big. From a mentor of mine who's a judge who focuses on like really mentoring young people, and also like those things taught me how to cultivate talent. Understanding that you're coaching talent. How do you coach them? How do you ultimately help them to get better? Some of the folks that I know, like the VCs of the world that have done well, where I've sat in conversations with them, like the Mark Susters of the world, like
Yeah,
really
I'm,
good.
I'm a big fan of his.
I
I'm a
mean,
big fan of his. Like,
solid.
I probably get offended by him, but I just like the advice he puts out. He used to do these things called snap storms back in the day.
Yes,
Yeah,
like
I'm a big fan of
he's
his.
just solid. Like the advice that he gives, and then on top of that, he's just down to earth.
Yeah.
Like, it's like he doesn't think that he's like he knows it all at all. Like he's more like, and those are the types of investors or the type of people that you want to surround yourself around, where they don't think that they know everything, but they realize, okay, hey, I may know some things, but I'm also still learning in this process as well. Like mentors learn from the folks that they mentor as much as the mentee learns from the mentor.
So a follow-up question. To me, the more important part of the question, who are you mentoring right now?
Oh my God, too many. Too many. Like on the stock market side, I still mentor people. On the founder side, on in the startup world, I mentor people. For the folks that are interested in getting into venture capital, like my goal is not to sway you from getting into it, but more so to understand like this is the game that you're stepping into. This is what the game looks like. For founders, like every single founder that's within our portfolio at FTC, I mentor them. Like my job is like though it says managing partner, it's more so I'm the CEO of CEOs because of the fact that as a CEO, you're constantly coaching, you're constantly instilling wisdom, you're constantly like helping your team get better, and also helping solve problems along the way. So like, yeah, I'm like majority of my day is probably spent like 50% of it is spent mentoring people, like where it's just sometimes just listening, being a soundboard. Um, and then the other part is like helping work through the problems.
So the companies in under your from the culture, are they all Seattle based across the United
No,
States?
they're across the United States.
Okay.
So again, like, when I set out on this mission, and honestly, I didn't know where it was going to take me. So I just said, you know what, no matter where the journey takes me, I'm just going to be open to it.
And these companies, they reach out to you. You reach out to these companies. Like, how does that work?
They reach out to us.
Okay.
Like I'm blessed in the sense that we don't have to do the whole sales.
Is it like some kind of application process, or obviously senior pitch
Literally,
deck? What?
we
How does that work? How do you like
exactly
select? Yeah.
we that's why I said it's like FTC kind of like runs like a venture capital firm where it's just like, okay, hey, bring us the pitches. Like, the other LPs there, they'll bring a pitch, they'll bring a founder my way, say, hey, like let's talk to this person, or do you have the time to like literally meet with them? First I'm like, okay, hey, do we have the capacity to bring
Yeah.
another company underneath
Yeah.
our portfolio? What does that look like? Because we're making the investment into their company as it pertains to many times they're not paying for the development costs. We are.
What is your capacity? 20 companies, 30
So
companies?
currently in our portfolio right now, we have 16.
Okay.
We have 16 companies in our portfolio and growing.
Okay.
I think that when it's all said and done, we'll probably have about maybe 40 to 60.
And what all do y'all provide?
Software development, business development, preparing for fundraising. We don't get into the HR part, but we know some people that are pretty dope there. um, but yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, surrounding like legal around them, giving them all the necessary things that they need to be able to succeed. I mean, we introduce them. We have a very vast network of folks that are outside of our firm that work with us, and then inside of our firm, we have folks in whom which that have been there before or that have seen parts of the journey.
Can you like highlight or talk about a couple of them?
Not yet,
Okay.
but in July, I
Okay.
will.
Okay.
I will be doing quite the reveal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
But I will say that they range from sports, um, finance, AI, of course, consumer and enterprise.
and you do like they give you like weekly updates, monthly updates,
Well, I talk to them like all the
all the
time.
time. Okay.
So
Okay.
like,
So pretty much you're
literally they're
available
sitting in a
available.
Slack.
Okay.
They're sitting in the Slack. So essentially like, each company is the channel in our firm. So, I'm seeing what's happening. I'm seeing from their conversations that they're having. So
Is there a company you took on? Like how to put this? Like, suppose a company reach out to you and you in your mind like, man, there's no way I'll work with them, right? But somehow they convince you to
yeah,
take a chance on them.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's happened,
Okay.
and it's and we've also had like a company that we've worked with where it's just like, okay, after we've worked with them, it's just like, okay, it's not working.
Yeah.
This is not going to work out. And so how is it that we make the best of it? How is it that we prepare the founders so that way they can transition? If it means that we're not going to be on this journey with it.
What characteristics do you think make up a quote unquote good founder or great founder?
Teachable, explorer, and then on top of that, a person whom wish that like literally we're not looking for like I understand hustle culture is like the part where you work yourself tired now, but we're more so in the sense of with a hustle in the sense that you know they live for the business, they live for the idea, and they want to solve it.
How long does it take for you to figure that out? It's like a couple of meetings, 30 days, 20 days, you pretty much tell right off the
Typically,
bat.
I tend to find out like from folks like the questions that I ask is like I tend to find out fairly quickly. Um, like there's certain questions that you can ask a founder that they just can't that as much if they don't know it or whatever it is, you just can't dance around it.
So as a founder, you have to know a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
What's like, pose us 10 things you want your founders to know. What's the one thing where like, okay, you don't know this, that's okay, right? I can work with that.
I mean, business model. Like, a lot of times, like, we expect founders to know their business model, but sometimes the business model doesn't work and ultimately leads you into a place where you have to go and like literally pivot. So business model is one of those things where it's just like we can sacrifice that.
Yeah, I see so many people like that's the number one thing, business model. Like how do I make money? Yeah.
No, I mean the number one thing is like the value proposition. Like the value proposition model for like, okay, hey, is this showing pathway to viability? Like, is there pathway that people will actually want to utilize this product or service? And what's the value for them?
And then what's the one thing that your founders have to have? Like you don't have this, I can't do business. The one thing they need to have,
Dedication.
dedication.
You
Okay.
got to be dedicated. Like if
So
you're not
how
dedicated, then how can you expect my firm to
so
be
how does someone
dedicated?
prove that to you?
Show me, like, show me that you're dedicated to it. Like every founder that has come to my stage, like to our desk and sat down and talked to us, I sit back and ask you, like, what is it that you've done so far? Like, what are some of the necessary steps that you've done to like literally make your business viable or to put your business in a specific position? What have you done? Um, and if they tell me, like, and it's like, okay, hey, show me. And if I see it, then great. Like now I know that you're dedicated towards it. It's like you're working 40 hours a week at this company that pays you, but at the same token, you're putting in X amount of hours
Yeah.
here to make this a reality. Like that matters. Like if you're not putting the necessary time and you're just waiting on us to literally build the idea for you to make it a reality, we could build you the greatest product, but if you don't have the business behind it, and if you don't show the dedication behind it, then why should anybody else?
So obviously there's a lot of people that are going to start advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some good, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it not so good, right? How should our founder like go about as far as like picking and choosing what advice to follow or not follow?
I mean, more so in the sense of like, okay, hey, like don't take it personal. What's in the best interest of the business? And what they're telling me, is it in the best interest of my business? Like one of the things I also learn is when people get advice, one of the things that I do when it comes to advice, and a lot of our founders at FTC will tell you, they're like, Mark helps me solve my own problem by majority of the time just asking me questions. So I spend very little time giving advice. I spend more time asking
So you
questions.
like help them reframe their mind thought, so to speak.
I'm just asking them the questions that ultimately just allows them to just like think about it in the sense of like, okay, well, why is this not working? Or what is it that the data is trying to show me? You know, and I tend to find that founders will figure it out for themselves.
Do you tend to find that companies start with co-founders or more successful ones with like solo founders, or that doesn't really matter?
It depends. It
Okay.
depends. Like, some companies they can flourish with just one founder. And then other companies like, but at the same token, I always give the advice to folks in the sense of just like my 2 cents. I'm like, hey, if something were to happen to you though, how does the business continue?
Yeah.
And so if you're coming to an investor and asking them for capital, they're probably thinking the same thing. Like, okay, if he gets hit by a car, God
Yeah.
forbid, what happens to the company that I just invested into? What's the plan? So, I mean, yeah, having founders is not only just a redundancy thing, but it's somebody that you can also bounce ideas off of that gives you that gives you ideas outside of just like what's in your own head. Um, so yeah, we know the advantages of having multiple founders, but then there's some cases where you have a solo founder and they're just a rock star and they just
Yeah.
knock it out the park. So
So how come this doesn't happen? And maybe it does, I don't know about it. So a startup founder gets funded, right? Pose like they get, we'll say $2 million, right?
yep.
What keeps them from like going to the Philippines or going to Thailand? That's take the money and running, right? Is like laws against that? Like what keeps that from happening?
Uh,
Besides, integrity and honesty, all that kind of stuff,
I mean, yeah, I mean that's the main thing.
Yeah.
But I would say like,
I'm just surprised it doesn't happen more, to be honest with you.
I mean, yeah, I
Of
mean,
course, I have a cynical view on people, so
well, and also the world has become so much smaller.
yeah, you
Like
can't hide no more, right?
you can't really hide no more.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the written code of just
yeah.
like,
And $2 million in a big scheme of things really is not a lot of
it's
money.
not. It's not. I mean, but when you think about it, it's just like the code of just like, hey, like if you're really true to what it is that you're doing, then
Yeah.
essentially you're not going to try to run numbers. Now, of course, there have been companies that got acquired by publicly traded companies, and ultimately, like it was a complete
Yeah,
nothing burger. Um, but again, it's like, all investments, all businesses risk, I mean, and they should be treated in the form
yeah.
in which that they're supposed to.
So next move on, you're doing this summit in July, right?
Yeah,
Let's talk about it real fast. So
let's do it.
I have your website up right now.
Yeah.
Anything you want me to go and talk about? Or
Yeah, feel free. Go,
okay.
go look.
Um, so your speakers, I was a keynote speaker.
One of them, yeah.
So how did you pick these speakers? The people you already know, or
People that I know. So Kofi, he's the head of TXO at A16Z.
okay,
So their talent and
that's
opportunity.
man, what's that? There was man, I can't think of the real name for them.
Andreessen
Yeah,
Horowitz.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I met him when I went to speak in New Orleans. Very phenomenal guy, doing some pretty good work with startups and founders.
And are
Um,
these people like you have to pay them a fee to speak for you, or it's like
no, they're all doing it because of the fact that they want to
okay,
be there.
okay,
Philip Jacobs, he focuses on like, like really like pressing the uncomfortable conversations within corporate. There's of course Evan Poncelet, who's doing things at DreamWork Group. Renee Peters, who's doing some pretty cool work at NVIDIA. He'll be speaking with Dennis and Antoine
you got your
Flowers.
random right guy right here.
And hey, nah, but I mean, Dennis is cool. He's super cool. Tiara Swain, she can speak towards the recruitment, not only just within like startup space, but just tech and
And
overall.
these people, like, did you tell them what you want to speak on, or they just come to you and say, "I'll
Well,
speak on
I
this"?
gave him an idea as it pertains to the general premise, but ultimately, like, they're about it. Like,
Okay, and they're talking like 30 minutes, an hour, or just
so
different.
each session is going to be about 45 minutes to an
Okay.
hour. But yeah, so
Um, is anyone speak on here that you're excited to hear from?
oh man, I'm excited to hear from all of them. Like, you got Wall Street folks that are there, like Mark Mahaney from Evercore ISI and Christopher Bush, he started a hedge fund that I was, helping advise. And he's also a fellow Sigma as well.
Okay.
So I think you'll like that. But he manages, what is it, close to 200 million in AUM
And where's this going to be at?
at University of Washington Foster School. So we got all three buildings of the Foster
Okay,
School of Business.
and that's for startup hall, is that, or is that something different?
So that's Founders Hall. We got Founders Hall, Dempsey, and Packard Hall. So yeah,
And remember correctly, 90% of the money is going to go as like some
100%.
100%.
100% of the proceeds, so all ticket sales and all sponsorship goes towards nonprofit. So we're going to focus on Down Syndrome Center, African American Leadership Forum, and then also providing to Burke because they've been influential of opening their doors to us.
And don't you have a partnership with them now?
Yeah, and also apparently I'll be sitting on the board soon for University of Washington Foster School or Burke Center of Entrepreneurship.
Oh
So
shit!
yeah,
More people to mentor.
I guess so.
So talk about the startup speed pitch.
So startup speed pitch is like pretty much each founder or each startup is given 5 minutes to pitch to VCs in the room, and then you move on to the next one.
Okay.
And at the end, if they want to like literally carry on an extended conversation after that, we welcome that. Like that's what it's about. Like people that come to this event from high, low, we want them to be able to like literally be able to sit down and have those conversations with venture capitalists, and then also let the VCs know that there's other talent that's coming out there.
Yeah. So I know you have an application process on this website,
Yep.
pitch deck.
Yep.
Like how are you going to go about choosing? Like, suppose you get 1,000 startups.
We've gotten quite a few,
Do you have
and we still don't discourage anybody from pitching.
Okay.
Like 5 minutes goes by pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it means that you're only able to pitch 3 startups, we'll probably make the pitches available afterwards on the site or something like that. But I mean, we go through a simple process of just like doing the verification of like the startup the same way that we do here at FTC. I mean, we're not judging you in the sense of like hey, even if we may not invest in it, there's somebody out there that would invest in it. We just want to make sure that they're fundable or that they're on a pathway. And some of the startups, they may just be there just for advice.
Um, who's like obviously you want everyone to come, but do you have like a perfect person you want to come, like an early stage startup founder, someone to raise like
It's for everybody, early
everyone?
stage to
Okay.
like Series B, or even if they work at a publicly traded company. If you're an investor, if you want to learn about the stock market, you can do that too. I'm bringing those two worlds together. Technically 3 worlds because venture capital as well. So you got high net worth and you're thinking about like diversifying your portfolio. You already are in the stock market, but maybe you want to invest into becoming an LP at a venture capital firm or know what it takes to start your own firm. There's that. And then for startups to meet founders or even meet VCs and possibly even have a term sheet on the way. That's the overall objective of this event.
And for the tickets, does it include interest fee, like 3 meals a day? What does the ticket actually?
Yeah, so the event will be catered. So we'll have food there to cater some of it. We do want our a guest to also go visit Seattle. Like
Mhm.
that's one of the things that we also like stress. Like
Because
go
this
visit the
Marriott
city.
Hotel, which Marriott is this?
That's the one in the U District.
Is it
So we may
okay?
have to like focus on getting some more rooms because apparently I just found out that they're all booked up now.
Okay.
So we'll see if we can get more rooms. We had a lot of folks that were booking up the space, and we had a great partnership with them. So we'll see what we can do. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's for everybody.
So what's your goal for this? Like, what's your metrics of success? Like,
Metrics
just
to success is like were there any companies that ultimately built relationships with VCs? We'll follow up with our startups that came to the event. We'll also follow up with the VCs. Like, hey, did you find any good companies? Of course, you know, we'll be watching in the room of seeing like, okay, hey, on the investor side, what did that look like? Connections that were being built. We see all those things. We see some of those same metrics with the come up series. People have been asking me to do this event for 3 years now, and now it's just like, okay, hey, it's finally here.
is this being live streamed also, or you have to be in person to do
You have
this?
to be in person, but
Okay,
we're kind of like thinking about like possibly making it available for folks to
maybe
watch
like
it.
recording it or something.
Yeah, watching the recording of this event. And so we'll think about that. But for now, it's like they've asked us to do a live event, so this is live
Okay. Um, anything else you want to talk about? This anything you want to highlight or
for the summit.
yeah?
Um, I mean, get your tickets. Like, get your tickets. Like, you know, you're gonna want to know. Like, you'll. This is one of those events. Like, I know that we got Seattle, a lot of like tech weeks and stuff like that here in Seattle.
I know this week was the AI week here in
This was
Seattle.
AI week, and then we'll have like another one, which is like climate tech or
Yeah,
something like
something like
that.
that.
And then we'll have like this event was before the actual Seattle Tech Week that kicks off. But this is different. This is different because most of those tech weeks that you normally see here in Seattle is the same people.
Yeah.
This is going to be different because you're going to have people that are coming from different parts of the world, not only just here in the U.S., but from places like London, Ghana. Um, and so, like I said, it's going to be pretty cool.
For your sponsors, who's this right here? I've never heard of them
So bar
before.
chart, that's actually the platform that I used when I first started trading. I didn't trade on the platform, but it was where I got a lot of my technical analysis, and I used it for like news and technical analysis, charting. And so they've been with me since my entire journey as a trader. Come August, I'll be 20 years in the game as a
Okay.
trader.
And this right here. Yeah.
That's Love Resource Development Group. That's by Ruby Love.
Okay.
And then Novate Black, that's Sabrina Short. So where she focuses on
And this is
Black tech founders,
yours.
that's FTC, and then
This
that's
is
the come
yours,
up
right?
series.
Okay.
Yep. And then
I
that's
know him.
Ascend VC, Kirby
Yeah.
Winfield,
Yeah.
and then Foster School of Business through Burke Center of Entrepreneurship.
Um,
We're also open to more sponsors if they want to sponsor as well.
how now a lot of people are going to use public transportation. How long is this from like the Link Rail station at the University of Washington? Is it within walking distance? Do you know?
Yeah, this like the light rail station in UW
Right
is now
there.
there.
Okay.
So yeah, you could just like literally get off and just go walk to the university.
Now for the schedule, for like, suppose someone can only go like for the first day.
So the
It,
first day is like the kickoff. So
okay.
Friday is the kickoff. And so that's where it's like, I'll probably give a keynote, and then after that it's just a mixer. Welcome to the city. You'll have myself, Dean Foster, and then Amy Sullivan from Burke, and then of course the city of Bellevue Mayor Dr. Lynn Robinson.
Now, are you gonna have like different things going on at the same time? Like this
Yep.
person speaking.
Yep. So like we'll have sections where they're just keynote, where they're just general events, like general audience, so everybody comes in. And then we'll have workshops, and we put it on. If you scroll up, there's an investor track, and then there's an entrepreneurs track. And those events can take place at
Okay.
around the same time.
Okay.
And so you can pick and choose which event that you want to attend. So you're not locked into
Okay.
any of the events.
So what do you want people to get out of it? Suppose someone attends all 3 days. What do you want them to get out of this?
I want them to like literally like when you're done with this event, you should actually have actionable steps that you need to take in order to make your startup move or to like literally move forward in your investment journey. And then on top of that, having a better understanding of the knowledge that's in front of you, understanding market, understanding what's happening in the startup space, and then also understanding how VCs truly work and what they're looking for. The VCs that are coming to speak, no bullshit. Like it's literally like we're gonna ask you questions
Yeah.
like what companies are you investing in? Like what is it that you're looking for? What is that secret formula, or what is that formula that takes you from, okay, hey, I'm listening to a yes or no. Same thing for the publicly traded markets. So again, it's giving you all different types of data.
And this is your first time doing this?
This is my first time ever putting on this event, and people are asking me about next year's event.
Yeah, I
I'm
was going to
like,
ask you.
look,
I was going to ask you, like, what has to happen at this event for you to say, okay, I'm doing this next year?
God has to say, like, Mark, do it again. But no, all jokes aside, I don't know. I mean, let me get through the first one first,
Okay.
and we may have to have a comeback episode for me to like talk about it. But this is something that like literally we put this together in 6 months.
Yeah, and people don't realize like that's not a short amount of time to do
It's
something like this.
that's like literally like we
Yeah.
started putting this event together in
All
February.
these speaks you have to deal with the schedules, I'm sure, and
Exactly.
like, I'm sure you probably had like several different dates you had to go through.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
And
People don't
so
realize people just think that events just happen. No.
yeah, see, normal events like this normally takes a year to plan. We literally started planning this event and putting it together from the ground running, starting in not mid May, mid February. That's when we got started.
So with tickets, is it like different price for students, for startup?
Students are free.
Okay.
Startups pay the same general pricing as everybody else.
Okay.
If you want to have a booth, it's like $500. We could probably throw a discount in there for that one. But again, I mean, general admission is $150 a ticket.
Okay. That comes out to $50 a day. And I'm assuming you're not going to have like freaking, Church's Fried Chicken as a catering, right?
Oh,
I'm
absolutely
pretty
not.
sure.
No, no, no.
I'm pretty sure that
You
this.
know me well
I'm
enough to
pretty
know I'm a
sure.
foodie.
I'm pretty sure the food alone is gonna be worth more than $50 a
I'm a
day.
foodie. I'm a foodie. Like,
I'm pretty sure
we're
the
gonna
food
have
alone.
we're gonna have Jerk Shack there.
Yeah. The food
And
alone is gonna be worth more than $50 a day.
God, yeah. God, yeah. We are literally like, I'm a foodie at heart. I expect good food. And so I went, and this is like if people are coming to visit our city for the first time, I want them to experience like good food, good culture,
So
good things.
the people flying in, like,
Yep.
did you have to pay for the flights, or they did that on their own dime, or
The speakers?
yeah,
No, they like I said,
they were on their own. Okay.
like, look, this was one of those ones where it's like, hey, everybody come outside.
Mm-hmm.
And they came outside. And they're
Like,
like, hey,
you're
like,
like,
I'm with this.
you're like,
Like,
I'm Mark Monroe.
oh my
I'm
gosh.
Mark Monroe.
I guess you could say that, but more so in the sense that it's
I
like,
am Mark Monroe.
there you go.
I am Mark Monroe.
But
I'm doing this event.
but more so it's like they see the cause behind it too.
Mm-hmm.
They understand like, okay, this has significant meaning and this hasn't been done before. Like we've seen other events like it, but when I like go through the full rubric of like really what it gives you, the all encompassing, yeah.
So why Friday through Sunday instead of like Monday through Wednesday?
I just wanted to give people the weekend.
Weekend, okay.
And then on top of that, to have the buildings, we don't have to worry about all the other hoopla that's going on.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So like for those 3 buildings alone, I mean, to have those for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we get it till whenever we leave.
So y'all have any like after 5 p.m. entertainment?
There's possible for a mixer. There's definitely possible for a mixer. So we did an early bird, and so those early birds are VIPs.
Mm-hmm.
We may bring it back on next week for a flash sale.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if they want to participate and like, sit down with the speakers and everything else and like, have more intimate conversations, we'll make those available again. Okay. But for the most part, I honestly believe that if I ever dreamed of putting together an event, this is exactly what it would look like.
Okay, nice. All right. So next question, right?
Yeah.
So people are talking about like the disparity between like kind of well-off people, kind of poor people, right? Mm-hmm. Disadvantaged. Mm-hmm. But what about like suppose someone lives in like, we'll say the Central District in Seattle, right?
Yep.
They're not well off. They have access to all the stuff, all the tech stuff in Seattle, right?
Yep.
Then you have someone who lives in like, bumfuck Arkansas on a farm with 20 people, right? No access to tech, right?
Okay.
Isn't a person in Seattle actually like better off as far as his access to stuff? He might be poorer than the person in Arkansas because of lack to the tech, and of course there's Zoom and stuff like that.
It just are you talking about like the ecosystem that surrounds him?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like you see like in ecosystems that are trying to do better and everything else, and it's just like, what can you do? Mm-hmm. And that's where it really comes into the play where it's just like the ecosystem has just got to get better. We even see it with companies that have great ideas, and yet, the talent for the early stage is good, but then outside of early stage, they're struggling. And the reason why is because it's like, okay, hey, where do you find that next talent here? You're not going to find them in that same geographical location. When it comes to opportunities are plentiful, but who are those opportunities for?
Yeah.
And cities have cities sometimes do a bad job of leaving behind the folks in whom wish that it like literally are like natives there. Um, and so I think that if we focus on literally making the opportunities, if the opportunities are plentiful, but if we make them available for the folks in whom wish that are here, and then then it's like, okay, hey, like use it as a recruitment tool to like show everybody else, like, hey, that this is the reason why I got to take this call. This is my
Okay.
wife.
Okay.
Um, hello, hey, yeah, I'm in the middle of a podcast interview. All right, and also I'm glad that she called because my parking uh, was expired. Let's see here. I parked down here on. The one thing I hate, 86110. 86. I have to like cheat the system in order to.
Yeah, I usually play like Parking Street poker.
It says you can't extend your parking due to parking restrictions. What? Hmm. Seattle has definitely changed. 86110. So up to 2 hours time limit. Okay. So do I have to let it expire and then park again?
Yeah, I've never seen anyone do it. You say just get on the phone and redo it.
Okay, so it just expired. I mean, if I just get a ticket, I just get it. They can't tow it. So. This is the part about Seattle I don't miss.
How often do you come to Seattle?
I come to Seattle like maybe like twice a week,
Okay.
like to drop off my wife. Um, Payment is not accepted at this time. Parking advisory.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
For more information, please check signage. Huh. Yeah, if I just get
Okay.
whatever.
Cool. So what's a skill you don't have that you want to learn?
Huh. What's a skill that I have that I want that I don't have that I want to learn? Skill that I don't have that I want to learn. I want to learn how to swim.
You know how to swim?
I do not know how to swim.
That's kind of.
Don't do it.
I just thought you know how to swim, bro.
No, I do not. I do not. I do not know how to swim, and it's like very
I don't know
embarrassing.
why I thought you knew how to swim.
And if it's not swimming, the other thing that I want to learn how to do is I don't know. I think that that's the major thing.
Okay.
I want to learn how to swim.
I could remember this wrong, but didn't your grandparents like build a school in Alabama or something?
Oh God, no. No, no,
No.
no. They didn't build no school. My
No.
grandmother was from Selma, Alabama,
Okay.
and she literally moved all throughout her life because she
Okay.
was in the military. She also
Okay.
lived in Germany.
Okay.
My grandfather's from New Orleans, so
Okay.
and maybe they did some stuff with the Black Panther
Yeah.
Party on schools, but I don't think they built. I want to build a school.
Okay. I'm sure you will one day.
It's possible. I mean, let some of these acquisitions go through with FTC. I'm building a school.
Here's one for you. Like just a few years ago, like so I go to this thing called New Tech Northwest, right? This guy named damn, what's his name? Damn, Greg Green runs it, right?
Okay.
And so like people pitch whatever. At the beginning, he'll always say, if you're looking for a job, stand up, right? Back in the day, like no one would stand up and look for a job, right? But all the companies would raise stand up and say, I'm looking for developers, right?
Yep.
Because back then,
They needed them.
yeah. About a month ago, same thing happened. Who's looking for a job? 40 people stood up, 40 developers stood up, looking for a job.
Yep.
No one is hiring, right? How did this switch happen so fast?
Because the market changed. Like
Mhm.
you had so many like developers became plentiful
Mhm.
and the jobs started to become few. um And I think you're talking about like just recently, right?
Yeah.
Like, so like we saw a massive amount of like layoffs
Mhm.
within the tech space. And so there was a flushing of talent
Mhm.
in the tech space. And then a lot of them were out looking for jobs.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them have joined startups and everything else. Like that's typically what happens when you get this massive outflow of the publicly traded companies, large companies, and it ultimately trickles its way on down to startups.
Would you advise someone to become a developer in this day and age, or they should try to do something else?
Like out of college?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Out of
mean,
college, whatever the case may be.
or just period.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the knack for it, by all means. There's so many different parts of the landscape. You could be a software engineer, you could be an AI engineer where you focus on AI models and machine learning. Um, you could be a data scientist. I mean, there's so many different arenas now that are now more open to people that you don't have to just go in one specific direction.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, but
So from your point of view, talk about some of the pros and cons of being an entrepreneur.
which one should I take first? uh, let's take the pros. I mean, you get to work on something that you wake up every day excited about. Every day is going to be you solving a problem like a puzzle. You get to work with some pretty cool people because, of course, they're people that you've chosen to work with. You're excited to solve such problems, and then of course you know where a journey could take you, but you don't know like the twists and turns. So it's just like it's something new every day versus the everyday mundane task of doing the same thing over and over and over again. Um, the cons. You know where your revenue is coming from, but you don't know if it's coming tomorrow. You're going to take a lot of ambiguity and risk it all and make some significant sacrifices as it pertains to like life. Things that you won't be able to do, like because of the fact that you're drawn to this, especially if you're working a 9 to 5 and being an entrepreneur. But the stress, the stress, the emotional ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. Yeah, those are just a few of that. And like you're trying to validate an idea and it hasn't been validated yet. The building of the idea, but it's like, okay, hey, like the problems, the bugs, you know, the constant challenges. But again, some of those can just be a positive once you solve them.
Yeah, I joke around that you should have to take some kind of mental health test before you become an entrepreneur.
Yes, I think that you should. I
Yeah.
think that like everybody should like literally get it like, or when you start it, just get checked. Like
Yeah.
just go like, hey, am I fit for this? Do I have the stomach for this? Because a lot of folks, they have ideas and they want to bring it forth, and I welcome it. It's always great in theory, but then it becomes that other part to it where it's just like, ugh,
Yeah.
it's stressful.
So do you want to do another drink or you good?
I could do a slight little drink. Yeah.
Okay.
What are we doing? Are we doing the same one?
It's totally up to you.
I mean, that one was good.
Okay,
So
totally up to you.
what else do you have that's like that one?
The rest of them are bourbons.
Okay, well, I know you're a bourbon guy, so I'll join you in your world. You pick one.
Um, let's try this Angel Envy. I never had it. Everyone says it's
All
pretty
right, so
good.
well, this is we in your house, so you
Yeah.
pop it, sir.
So I'm doing this. Talk about this, right? Talk about the importance of like your spouse, your partner, whatever the case may be, being supportive of your entrepreneur journey.
Oh God, yeah. I mean that's being an entrepreneur is just like being in a marriage. Like when you sign on to be a founder, you're literally in a full-fledged relationship. You know, there's like the ups and downs and everything else that go with it. You're stuck. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. You just have to go with it. Um, Having a partner that understands that or that is willing to support you through that craziness and masochism is huge. You know, I've had relationships in which that with people that I've dated, and the relationship was just not going to work out because of the fact that they wanted me to either choose them or the startup. And we know how that played. Okay, I'm gonna have way less than yours, but
Yeah, I've never had this one before. Everyone says it's really good though.
it looks very, very good. All right, so I think I may have like I don't know what I've just like stumbled into because of the fact that this has wings on the back.
Hope we don't fly away.
Hopefully I don't fly away or something like that, or like I don't find myself in trouble. So this is Angels Envy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Cheers again, my friend.
Cheers, brother.
And also, I think a lot of times startup founders mess up. Like, obviously, you're gonna tell your significant other, right? I think a lot of people mess up and don't tell their friends, right? Like, they don't tell your friends, "Hey, I won't be able to like hang out with you anymore, right? I'm
Yeah.
doing this, right?"
No.
And their friends, you know,
Because you ride on that emotional high when you first start working on an idea. The citrus taste is everything there.
oh man, this is
Yeah,
tasty.
right. I know. I mean, all right, Angels Envy. All right, Angels Envy, and okay, you're putting me onto some serious game here. All right, so, but yeah, I mean, you're so excited that you just like forget, like it's kind of like, oh man, I'm working on this idea, and everything else just like kind of like time to stand still, and I'm just focused on like just building all this other stuff. Then it's just like reality comes back, and it's just like, hey, you got friends that you haven't even seen or talked
Yeah.
to, none of that, like, and it's just part of the process.
That's what people don't realize too. I joke around too. Like, none of us can hire a personal assistant like Elon Musk, right? Like,
Mm-mm.
I mean, hopefully you still taking baths. I mean, hopefully you still take care of your car, doing laundry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you still, if you're married, you got responsibilities to your wife, you know,
Yep.
like, and all that takes time, you know. Good old butters.
Come lay down. Lay down.
So, what should, from your point of view, like, suppose there's three co-founders, right?
Yeah.
And like the typical hackster, hipster, whatever you want to call it, the
Yep.
different roles. What should their like their first five hires be? Like developers, marketing, sales, designer. Like in best case scenario, they can and they got funding, they can hire whatever they want.
Yeah.
What should their first five hires
Well,
be?
it all starts, all problems are always solved in design. Like, great design, not only just in the sense of pretty images, but in the sense of how it's fleshed out, like how the idea is fleshed out, literally is solved in design. If you don't solve it there, then you're just going to have a ton of headaches and
And
hurdles
so
and
many
everything
people get
else
that
that go
wrong,
with
don't
it.
they?
And they make that wrong
So many
mistake
people that
every
how to
single
develop,
time.
they know how to designer.
Exactly. Um, and so there's that part. Once you make it, like, so here's the how it goes. So you go through design, and then ultimately you go through, and then once the design is finalized, something that, okay, hey, this is good, looks, we can move forward on it. Now we move it over to, all right, we have this thing where we have our developers start working on the back end,
Mm-hmm.
and they can build the services of what is it that what was designed. These are the features. Then it's like, okay, you come back and you need a front end developer to literally tie those two things together. And those two folks are working in tandem. Front end engineer is working on like bringing those designs to life. Back end engineer is writing the services, and then front end engineer ties those services together. That's literally how most of your software is naturally written. Um, and they're just following the specifications and guidelines from your designer. If you don't have those things, you're dead.
Okay.
You're just dead in the water, because then you're just going to be spinning your wheels over and over.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times when people will spend $150,000 to a firm to go out there and do it. And it's just like, okay, we just spent $150,000, $200,000 for them to do it. But then it's just like, are they going to still stick around with us? Because it's not like you know how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just like, are you going to hire somebody in the interim while that's happening? It's like there's so many different combinations. But again, it's like it all starts at design.
Okay.
It all starts at design.
And what's your take on like a lot of people say, I'll make this up again. Like if you're a founder, you need to do the first sales for the first 10,000 ML or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if that's not your skill set, right?
Then find somebody.
Okay.
Like as a founder, you don't need to take on all this. Like there's some things that you're gonna have to figure out. Some things you will have to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
But then in other arenas, it's like, okay, hey, if you're not a developer, then you're the business. And it's on you to ultimately not only build the business, but also find people that can help you build the business. You can't do all this by yourself. Like, if not, you'll just go angry and you'll be mad. And the overall objective is that when you do these things, it's also in the sense of how you challenge people around you, how you build a team. And that's going to speak volumes about you in the sense of how you built such a team. So, I mean, honestly, it's like, when I hear about founders like, well, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then you got your team sitting on the sideline, just like, okay, well,
Yeah.
and I made those mistakes before. Like I made those mistakes fatally. In the sense of like, okay, hey, well, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, and meanwhile my team is just sitting there on the sideline, like, okay, well,
I'm collecting equity or I'm
what
collecting something.
what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, and it could be sometimes a kill, like to the culture of the startup or to the company. Um, so yeah, I always believe that find people that are smarter than you, hire people that are smarter than you, or bring people on that are smarter than you to be able to execute. And you got to trust them. Once you bring them on, you trust them to be able to execute the idea.
Do you think you'll ever start another startup?
Look, FTC is a startup,
Okay, that's your startup. Okay, okay,
and trust me,
okay,
I'm done
okay.
after like however long it goes as it pertains to how many companies that we are in the that we've had the privilege to serve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm gonna enjoy this run. But then after that, it's just like, you know, I want to go into the next thing, which is I want to build a school.
That's cool.
I want to build a school. That's going to be a startup within itself. So every new idea that you come forth with that you have to like literally flush out and literally find the pieces that surround it in order to like get things going and then also like get it off the ground. That's a startup.
So talk about your process, like finding the right people to work with, whether it's to a startup or FTC. Like, how do you like pick and choose, so to speak, the people you want around you to help you build what you're building?
You know what the business needs. I mean, you start with what does the business need? What does the business need? What does the team need? And then from there, you work your way either forward or you work your way backward, depending on where you are in this in the grand scheme of things. But it's just like, okay, hey, well, what does the team need right now? Like, you know, what is it need, what is it that we need moving forward? You know, is this going to be something that's going to be repetitive over a period of time that we're going to consistently need? Then if that's the case, then we need to find somebody that's not here just for a one-off, but somebody that's going to be able to stick around and somebody that enjoys doing this on a regular.
For the summit you do in July, what's the max capacity for that? Like, what's your like 200 people can attend,
600 people.
600 people,
Yeah.
and you're like, are you on like on the pathway to meeting that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are,
So, I mean, I'm like I said,
are you gonna have to turn people away?
I hope not.
Okay.
I hope not. That would kill me. Students are free. So it's like, you know, like I said, it's a mission focus for us, like in the sense of like really just trying to make sure that the ecosystem gets better. But yeah, that would really suck if I had to turn people away.
And I know it's on your website, it's on your Facebook, Instagram, but what other ways are you advertising this? Like, you doing like with social media blasts? Are you relying on all the speakers to push it out?
Yeah, so our speakers are going to start pushing it out soon. And then of course our sponsors as well. Um, and then of course like going to talk with individual groups like, you know, Venture Scale and all these other places, you know, just making sure that they're aware that this is happening in your own backyard.
Is there any like hackathons going on through these 3 days?
Yeah, there is a hackathon. There's
Okay.
a hackathon, and the winner gets prize money
Okay.
to start the company.
Is that's application on the website also? Or?
No, there's no application for the
Okay.
hackathon. It's going to be people that you meet at the event.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So what inspired me from that was Greg Gottesman when he started Rover, and then Rover went on to be a publicly traded company. That was started at an event like this.
Okay. Who do you have judges for the hackathon?
Yeah.
Already?
You want to be a judge?
Yeah, I'll be a judge. I'll be a judge. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I like that kind of shit. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll have you as a judge.
Okay.
All right. You heard it first.
Yeah.
Jason, I don't know which camera I'm looking at, but Jason will be a judge.
That'd be fun. Yeah. The one thing, like, I could not imagine like being an investor, having to decide what to invest in, right? Because you have limited money and there's all like
Oh, it's not unlimited.
the money's not limited.
If you're dealing with a $300 million fund, you're dealing with a $300 million
yeah.
fund.
I mean, we spoke, but like there's all these great ideas. Like yesterday, I even see this pitch competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
7 people pitch, all I'm like, man, that's a great idea. That's a great idea, right?
Yeah.
Like I have no idea how people choose, right? I mean, I'm sure there's metrics and stuff, but like
there's metrics.
Yeah.
There's metrics.
And you have to stay true to the metrics, and like, but of course everyone has biases for and against stuff, I'm sure, but I just could not imagine, like, man, like, can you imagine like picking between curing cancer or curing something else or AI or like
facts. I remember going to an event with Burke Center because they asked me to be a judge for their pitch competition. And there was 37 startups in this space.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these startups, I'm like, wow.
And
like,
of course,
these kids are in college.
Yeah, they all believe in it. They're dedicated.
They all believe in it. Their ideas are phenomenal. Like they got ideas that are solving problems.
You're like, you're doing what?
Like that are helping people that have had strokes, that are ultimately giving them like mental exercises to ultimately strengthen brain activity again. I'm like sitting here like,
So this is one of the best ideas I've ever heard, right? So I used to volunteer at Taft Federal Way, my
okay,
fraternity, right? And one time they're doing some kind of pitch competition. I was eighth graders, right? Three females, right? They got up, and their idea was to charge your battery using electricity out of your body, right?
oh,
We're like, oh shit,
that's infinite energy.
yeah. We're like, oh shit. But unfortunately, like two of them parents did some like had a something. They had a lot of personal problems. They couldn't go through it, right?
Okay,
They were like, I'll never forget that idea, right?
that's a very good
Like
idea
we're all like, oh shit,
because you have to harness the energy and it has to be extracted, and
yeah.
then from
And
there,
they had like, of course, no way to execute it. I don't think, but they had the plan right.
I think.
They had it broken down like, oh shit, like you don't realize you might have something here, right?
Well, remember this: all ideas start off as ugly
Mm-hmm.
ideas. All ideas are ugly. Like, and then it's just more so in the sense that the more that you work it out, the more that it blossoms
Mm-hmm.
from ugly duckling to like literally becoming a beautiful. And so, you know, I always tell people that, like, we hear so many ideas, and sometimes the ideas that may not even make sense to us, it's like, I'm like, okay, give yourself some time to like just think about
I
it.
mean, back in the day, who in the world would say, yeah, I want some random stranger to spend the night in my house? I get you to get the fuck out of here.
And then next thing you know, Airbnb, like it's crazy.
Yeah, back in the day, so you want me to get in some random dude's car and have him drive me somewhere that I don't know?
Uber.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows crazy ideas that come out now?
There's quite a few. There's quite a few.
I think it's
You
one
never
thing.
know. Like,
Yeah,
there may be an application in which that, say for example, we can gather data from individuals and be able to help them decipher what they should study.
okay.
Like, and then from there, give them a pathway as it pertains to like, hey, like kind of like gamifying.
Yeah, I think one challenge we have as a lot of parents, like I think a lot of kids are very entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
but I think parents like kind of discourage it.
Well, yeah, because life goggles. We put on all these life goggles.
Like
Like,
have you heard of Kylie's Lemonade?
yes,
Yeah, like she's 13 years old, like
killing
killing it.
it.
Imagine her parents or someone to say, no, you can't do this, or like put up roadblocks.
Well, I mean, the thing is like you can always tell, like when people, when life has made them jaded, then they pass on
So somewhere Kylie, should she even go to school? Like,
if she chooses to.
I mean, of course she need basic knowledge and stuff, but like,
If she chooses to.
yeah,
I mean, you never know. She may go to college and ultimately find another way to ultimately scale up the company. Be
yeah,
like, oh man, I learned this in
yeah.
business or in marketing.
But can you imagine like folks in college going to business class, some random instructor, and she's like, dude, I raised like blah blah blah. This book is bullshit.
I already know it's bound to happen. I think it's going to happen even in, we're going to hear about a story like this from a kid in high school. A kid in high school, instead of doing the typical extracurriculars, by the time when they graduate and they walk across the stage, they're going to be worth $100 million
Yeah,
because of an idea that they created.
yeah,
And I have a feeling that it's going to be something that involves high school.
yeah. So are you like positive or negative about the future?
Positive.
Positive.
You got
Why?
it.
Why?
Hope. I
Oh,
mean, hope that essentially that we can always be better than the day that we fell asleep yesterday and wake up tomorrow with an opportunity to be better. Kind of goes back to the be remarkable. There's always opportunity for us to be better. Um, and I believe that as catharsis as humans,
yeah,
we always want to do right when it comes down to it. Like
yeah.
we want to
I
do
believe
what's
that.
right. Now, like I said, there's your few exceptions out there, but
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, we want to do what's right.
So AI, I think the United States and China are like two big countries for AI right now, right?
Yes.
Is there like another country out there that no one is?
India.
India is the other one. Okay.
Nobody's paying attention to India,
India. Okay,
but
it's India. Okay. It doesn't really matter who wins this like so-called AI race.
um, I think it's more so in the sense of whoever quote unquote wins or like literally like dominates the space so well that essentially they get to write the rules. Like that's what it comes down to. Who gets to write the rules? Like, for example, once upon a time I invested in a company that was a drone company. And their focus was they didn't make drones. They made the fail-safe technology for drones to make them safer for people to fly over. And the reason why I invested in it because of the fact that I was like, okay, hey, if they get this shit right, then they can literally write the rules to FAA
Yeah.
for drones. And then once they do that, well, somebody's going to come in and buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so that's ultimately how I thought about it. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's that's the mindset that we have to have when it comes to like, okay, hey, like whoever's the leader will write the rules for everybody else who follows.
So obviously don't name the company, but is there a company you invested in and you're like, okay, I fucked this one up. I shouldn't invest in this company. Okay. And we need to realize you made a mistake.
When I got the call that found out that this person was involved in a specific type of sexual assault or sexual
Oops.
harassment,
Oops.
and yeah,
Okay.
and I was just like, yeah, this is a no for me.
You're like, yeah,
I'm out. Like,
yeah,
we need to figure out either they need to be removed or um, we're gonna pull.
yeah, yeah. Think what else? We covered a lot so far. Anything else? Anything I asked you? Anything I didn't ask you? I should have asked you. Anything else you want to talk about?
Let's talk about MyUnfold.
Okay.
Let's talk
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
Oh, I have to ask
Okay.
you.
What do you want? Okay. So MyUnfold, where did that idea come from? 'Cause I know what big backtrack, right? So this guy reached out to me maybe a month ago, right?
Uh-huh.
And I met him last night.
Okay.
So he used to work for Lockheed Martin.
Okay.
He would like code the the systems in the fighter jets, right?
Yep.
And so he had a bad experience with job search, right? So he wants to like fix job search, right?
Yep.
I said, dude, I want to discourage you, but man, everyone's trying to solve this problem. No one solved it, right? So I talked to him to the world. It was funny. Yesterday, one of the people pitching their startup is like to do recruiting for designers.
Mm-hmm.
I said, dude, I told you everyone's trying to solve this problem, right? I'm saying I'm not discouraging you from trying to problem solve. Just be realized everyone's trying to fix it, right?
Yep.
And you did kind of the same thing with MyUnfold.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't discourage him from doing it though, because of the thing is like given that there's people still within the space that are trying to solve the problem, shows you that how viable it is.
Just Create, Humidity.io, just like
Right.
on and on and on.
It's a constant. People will forever need jobs, and as like, but I will say this, people don't think about like even I didn't think about it at the time. People don't think about it from the standpoint of generational, like how generational it is in the sense of like, okay, hey, that these are generational challenges. And if you look at it from a generational challenge, then maybe you may solve it.
Yeah.
If you don't look at it from a generational problem, then you're gonna fall into the ether of everybody else who's doing the same exact thing. Like think about it. Like if we really look at it, Fiverr and Upwork, those are recruitment platforms.
Yeah. You're right. They are.
And they are massively successful.
Yep.
LinkedIn has been around forever. Look who's not here anymore. Like, or still around, but not really around. Monster and D and all those other folks. They're still around, but they're not really.
They're like the MySpace recruiting platform.
Exactly. And Monster, got acquired by Randstad, Swedish company, and then ultimately like things just kind of like I don't know, it just went off the rails from there. But also the demographic, the market changed. So again, it's like if you look at things from a generational standpoint, though, a lot of the platforms haven't really stepped up into the new generation.
I mean, ZipRecruiter is still the same platform, right?
Yep. And then it's like you got platforms like Handshake, which is dedicated towards college students, but even then it's just like, So again, it's like there's opportunity within the space, but like I said, nobody really thinks to like how they're solving that problem. If I can go back in time, man.
So this is my take. This is my opinion, right? I think the reason you can't fix it because a hiring manager, right? Because like hiring manager might tell a recruiter, I need a left-handed, red-headed, 6'2" with the code Python, right?
Yeah.
The recruiter found him 10 great candidates. Oh, I changed my mind. I need someone else now, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I mean, me personally, I blame hiring manager.
I would say the route that people should take instead of going for like the massive companies that are already indoctrinated, they should go towards the companies that are like Series A, Series B, that are still trying to figure out their HR. But they drastically need to recruit.
Yeah.
So companies that have just scored massive amounts of dollars, in fundraising, like those should be your clients. Those should be your customers.
Yeah. Also, people mess up recruiting. They like obviously have to recruit tech people differently from plumbers.
Yep.
Different from policemen. Like you have to recruit people differently, right?
Yep. So again, it's, if I could go back in time and change it, I would have thought generational. If I could, if
Yeah.
I had the mind capacity of thinking like, what's
The time
generational?
portal.
Yeah, if I can go back in a time portal and just like literally step back in and be like, all right, oh yeah, I would totally change it like this, and this would have like literally solved significant amounts of
And
problems.
MyUnfold wasn't like your second or third startup you did?
That was my third
Third
startup.
startup, okay.
Third startup.
All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I've had some doozies before then. Like I actually no, that if I'm like literally putting it all into perspective, then that would be considered my fifth or my
Okay.
sixth.
Okay.
Because Urban Tech Systems, that was technically a startup
Mhm.
that I came on board to.
Yeah.
And that did well. Um my first ever business
Because
was
Urban
what
Tech, that pretty much paid your bills for a while,
it
right?
paid my
Yeah.
bills. And then when I was 13, that was a Fiesta del
Yeah.
failure. I was the only one doing work. And my brother, who was my co-founder, was
Yeah.
just like,
You got it.
you got it.
You
But
got
then
it.
when it came time to get paid, he was like, oh, well, what's up with the coin?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the beautiful part about it though is each each time it was literally like a stair step up. So by the time when I got to MyUnfold, of course there was still a ton of shit that I needed to learn. There was a ton of mistakes, because doing urban tech was completely different than
Yeah.
doing MyUnfold. Urban tech, they were already having customers. They were just a different firm that we needed to transition from this firm and create a whole new firm. And then this is now the firm that literally does all that work now. So that was different. MyUnfold was just, oh, I got to create all this shit from the start.
Yeah.
That like this is different. Um, and I definitely struggled in the early innings there. I definitely struggled.
How about this? I think a lot of startup founders struggle. They think like, oh, I'm Jason Cabinets, have this great idea. It was going to work for me. No, right? Like, talk about the skill set you need to convince people to come work for you. Basically, for free, right? I mean, you can say you have equity,
Yeah,
but
but it's still free.
yeah. And to me, telling some of you, I'm gonna give you 10% equity. To me, that's the same as like me telling you the pot of gold and rainbow's yours. That shit probably is not going to happen.
Yeah. So I mean, the biggest thing is that what normally loops founders in is just the fact that they understand one, the business. So they understand like, okay, hey, this is the idea that we're building. And then two, the other part is like, okay, hey, people pay attention to like, okay, well, what are you doing now to execute? And they can easily see like, okay, hey, that you need their help, but it's just like, okay, hey, well, where do I fit? Like showing them how do they fit into
Yeah.
the landscape of things. A lot of founders actually struggle there, and that's the reason why they struggle to find founders. If they're lucky, they were just sitting there. They just happen to be sitting in the same room with somebody who wish that was knowledgeable, and they were like, okay, let's start this idea together. Like this just makes sense.
Yeah.
But other founders, they struggle to find other founders because of the fact is they have this idea and it becomes like their baby. And then it's like you expect the same person to be exactly like, oh,
No, it
gung ho,
don't work like that.
and it doesn't work like
No.
that. Like you're like they're walking into something that you've already started.
Mhm.
Like, and now it's like they're gonna get it, but then also it's like the other parts of that is where founder struggle is now that they're in this game with you. You also have to be able to kind of like, okay, it's no longer just mine.
Yeah.
It becomes mine becomes ours.
Yeah.
And how does that transition? Lord.
So how about so there's a lot of there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, right?
Yes.
How do you convince them like to, I won't say stop what they're doing, but how do you stop that? That's understandably a good question, but
I mean, the data shows it. The data shows it.
okay.
Like if you've gone through X amount of pivots over a period of time, then ultimately you need to start asking yourself the question, is this really working? If you're showing that, okay, hey, that you're not getting past the ceiling and you made X amount of pivots and the market still isn't responding towards it, then maybe you need to face the music and say it's time to close it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the number one lesson you learned from your time with MyUnfold?
Jesus. The number one lesson.
Or you do top 10 if you want to.
No. I'll find one. I'll find one. That's massive. Um, let's see here. The number one lesson that I have learned is early on. The early on lesson that I learned was you got to be able to trust your team. You can't trust your team, then essentially you will never go far and you'll ultimately handicap your team. And it grows and it will grow like a cancer.
Now, how do you make sure you pass that knowledge on to your current founders you're mentoring?
Oh, like literally just in the sense of always putting them in exercises when they're working with founders, like, okay, hey, like always asking, like, okay, hey, well, what does so and so think? Or, putting them in a position where it's like you think about like, okay, hey, that this is it's not just a me thing. Of course, people sometimes take the CEO role and blow it way out of proportion. Of course, it definitely carries its responsibilities, but it's not the only responsibility. And a CEO is only as good as the people that are ultimately surrounding them, that ultimately help them build a business.
And how for the founders you in FTC, how often do they interact with each other?
The founders, like within their own companies.
No, yeah, within FTC, how often do your founders interact with each
So
other?
our founders in FTC don't really interact with other founders.
Okay.
They're more so focused on their own
Okay.
company. I think the summit event will be probably like the first time where a lot of the founders get to meet the other founders.
Okay.
But the founders also interact with a lot of the FTC partners
Okay.
at any point in time.
And so the summit, there'll be like a room with all your startups in there. It's like they're doing like tables and stuff.
I
And
don't know. I don't know. Like there may be a surprise there.
okay. 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 So I'm going the right direction. Okay.
Yeah, look, I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
You never know what could possibly happen.
Okay. Nice. So anything else you want to talk about? Anything else I should ask you?
Um, are your Dallas Cowboys gonna actually win the title this
No.
year? Okay.
No. I'm a fan, but I'm realistic, right? Like Jerry Jones, all in, like all in. I guess all in means we're signing some random free agent linebacker.
I was gonna say all in means more so in the sense of let's get some tickets sold. Let's build.
Yeah, it's more about the brand for the Jones
Let's
family, of
start the
course.
marketing machine again.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny his marketing machine.
And look, listen, this man writes the book on marketing for
Yeah,
sure. Like showing like how is it that you can like literally carry the glory days of the 90s and people still feel it in
I mean,
2024. I
and
don't know
they
how that's
stay they
possible.
stay in the news. It could be like,
I think that they also do it like clockwork
oh
too.
yeah, yeah,
They do it like clockwork.
oh yeah,
They just do this massive push of like just information.
hmm
It's something that should be studied.
oh yeah. He's a master at it, right?
It should be studied. Now, I don't know. My Patriots, on the other hand, we look.
Yeah, I mean,
It's cold days past post Tom Brady.
yeah, yeah. Y'all be okay though, because there's a time that should play for Dallas. I can think of his name. He left Dallas, signed with Houston, right?
Uh-huh.
And he said like, man, I'm glad I'm in Houston. They focus on football. What do you mean? Yeah, he was like, yeah, in Dallas we have practice, and like he's like tourists just go through the practice facility, right? He's like it's like we're monkeys in a cave. Like they would like do tours of them practicing.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Nah, I'm good.
yeah,
I'm good. Yeah, Houston is the better spot for me.
yeah, yeah. Houston should be good. The only thing with Houston is they have a first place schedule now, so versus last year the last place
Look,
schedule.
man, I don't put nothing past anything now. Like you can have the best schedule, and then next that injury bug or
Yeah,
whatever
I
else
know.
hits, and then a team comes out of nowhere that was
Yeah.
unexpected.
My thing, the Cowboys all in did nothing. The Eagles signed Saquon Barkley. How you say
Saquon
his name
Barkley.
right? Vastly improved their team.
Well, vastly improved as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's
If
a good
if
point.
he's no longer healthy,
Yeah.
it's over.
And my thing is like with Kansas City, they won the Super Bowl with no receivers. They got receivers now. So
It's always weird when a team gets weapons, and
yeah.
then we were like, oh man, they got all these massive weapons, and then they don't do as well.
Yeah, it's true too. Yeah. Yeah, they got Marquise Brown.
Yeah,
He's fast. He's really done nothing so far in NFL as far as I know.
Marquise Brown, that's Hollywood Brown,
Yeah,
right?
Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, but he doesn't catch the ball though. He struggles to catch the ball.
Yeah. And Xavier Ward from Texas, like he wasn't the best receiver in Texas. I don't know. Who knows? It might be who knows, but I don't know.
If it's ever Dallas and the Patriots in the Super Bowl, we got to go.
Yeah,
We got to go.
definitely, definitely.
All right.
We're gonna wrap this up real fast. Can you share your social media so people can reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find me at I am Mark Monroe on Twitter, Instagram, and I guess you can find me on LinkedIn by just searching Mark Monroe, or I guess my tag is like I think it's I am Mark Monroe as well. So yeah, I think
Is there
I am Mark Monroe
is there a
overall.
best way for people to reach? Is like so one like you're on all the time or like
I'm on
just
Twitter a lot more
okay,
often. I don't really use Instagram like that, but I'll respond if I see messages there. LinkedIn, if you're always wanting to talk business with me, I'm always available. I don't really shun anybody away. Even if it means that it's a no, I'm still
Yeah.
going to give advice.
Um, you gave us a lot of good value, but can you give us any last minute advice or wisdom or anything you want to talk about?
One of the things that I've learned, and it's been like this constant thing throughout my life and my career, and it's just a quote that is just like it just kind of started sticking with me during the pandemic, and after I had some time for real self-reflection, and it's just pretty much never let your cockiness supersede your talent. Don't let your cockiness supersede your talent.
That's fucking good.
I mean, you know,
Damn.
when I was trading in college, my first trade ever, I traded with $1,500. Now in 2004, $1,500 was a lot of money to for a freshman at Tuskegee in Alabama. And I did the trade, and the trade went to 4,500. And I was like, okay, I'll just let it ride. You know, I got this. Like, this is easy, right? You know, professor said all things about risk, and I was like, you know what? Screw your risk. I'm up. Come back 2 days later, positions at zero. And then it's like I've had multiple losses like that, you know, over the course period of time. I took an $18 million loss in 2018. 2022 was ridiculous. Um, but at the same time, it's like one of the things that I've realized is that sometimes my cockiness is just the fact that I just like, okay, it'll be fine. I got this. And then reality is just like reality comes by and is like, huh, really?
Yeah.
Hold my beer. Um, and it's just like one of the things that I've learned. It's just like just never let your cockiness supersede your talent. We see it across athletes and sports where their cockiness supersedes their talent and then ultimately they're cut. We see it in tech or in companies all the time where like, you know, they got too cocky, they got complacent, and then somebody came up and like literally took their lunch. So again, just the best advice that I can give is like this out of all the things that I said, if you never heard anything else, just never let your cockiness supersede your talent.
Mark, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.